And welcome to the last round of the Golden Trail World Series before the grand final in Ascona-Locarno, Switzerland. This is a truly global event. We had Japan and China in April, Spain, France, Switzerland hosting three of the biggest trail races you can imagine, Zegama, Mont Blanc and Sierra Zinal. Headlands last weekend in the US, and we stay in US for the second week running. Now, Mammoth Lakes is the town hosting this one. It's a 26K. It's fast. It's not the biggest climb in the world, but David Hellard, the altitude here is a massive factor.
Yeah, it is. We've seen altitude once in this series before in China, and it had a pretty devastating impact on our athletes. But this race starts at 2,450 meters. So even walking up the stairs this morning, we're out of breath slightly, but it climbs all the way up to 3,365 meters, 1,100 feet. And that is going to make a difference to who is going to win today. So we saw the results of last week. We'll go through that, but actually it's going to be who's adapted, who's recovered, and who has been training and preparing for altitude that will win through today.
Yeah, and also who's hungriest to win the title of the Golden Trail Series this year. There's so much to fight for. And of course, with the new rules brought in due to the cancellation of the race in Poland due to a lightning storm, they made absolutely the right decision. Really disappointing for the Polish organisers. But it means that one less race counting before they go to the grand final. And for some, and of course, the leader of the men's, Alazoui, it springs to mind. He's been sort of dealt a short straw, but for others who'd only got two decent results in, it opens the door to possibly winning the title.
Yeah, absolutely. We had quite a few athletes who failed to perform early in the season. And with three of your best results going forward to the final, it was four before Tatra. But going down to three allowed those athletes to think ahead and actually think, I can still perform well overall in the season. We can see here today, Joyce is racing, as is Madalena. The person not on this list at the moment, though, because they've only got two races, is Judith Wyder, who she's won this series before. She'll be hoping to perform well today.
Yeah, Judith Wyder down in 14th place in the standings, but she has 366 points, so a win here would take her on to 566 and very much put her in contention for a top 3 or 4 at the end of the season. There's the men's rankings, 588 for Alazoui. You can see just how close it is. The Moroccan, whose dream is to win this title, he is going to have to go all out to beat the two Kenyans. If he does so, he'll have a little cushion. It's not much of a cushion, but he will have a cushion going into the grand final in Switzerland, and I think it would be a very popular win indeed. But the last couple of races, David, have been so close. 2 seconds separating 1 and 2 in Headlands. A similar margin at Sierra Zinal.
And both of them to Philemon Kiriega coming second in both. You've got to feel for him. I don't know if he knows what to do about this, because he's got such good closing speed. He's coming into form, but notably there we saw Remy Bonnet, last year's series champion, in 4th. He needs a win today just to restore his credibility, to get that confidence back. But we're going to be starting with the women's race in around 6 minutes time, and the men's start 20 minutes afterwards. So we'll be able to give equal coverage to both the men and the women's race today.
Yeah, the women already on the start line, and the top seeds will be on the front of the grid just to give them that little bit of an advantage. And the trail does narrow after a short while, so it's important to have decent position early on. Just a word, Mammoth Lakes, some of you may have been here. We're not far from San Francisco. The last race, Headlands, on the outskirts of San Francisco. It's about a 4.5-hour drive to the east. You certainly don't want to be going west of San Fran. And we are less than an hour's drive from Yosemite, the great half dome, the L cap where Alex Honnold struts his stuff. It is just one of the most spectacular places on earth. And this, of course, is you know, California's highest ski resort, and they get an astonishing 12 meters of snow a year. It's phenomenal. This actually, September is the driest month of the year for them, so they're enjoying a little bit of September sunshine, and the women with that little lead before the men get underway. Let's have a look at some of the main players. Rachel Drake going off early, not one of the biggest names, but if she can stay with the leading pack for the early stages, we may see her get a respectable top 10. I think that would go down as a decent result.
Absolutely. She's got some really good stamina in her legs, but there's Alia Stranda running for Team N Normal. She's known as a steeplechaser. She's incredibly fast on track. Probably our fastest runner here on paper, but she's yet to really transfer that to trail.
Rachel Tomaszczyk, none of the Americans running today, and
in fact, that's
got a top 10.
Liachi,
yeah,
who, and here is Rachel now.
Yeah, got a top 10 in Headlands, and was what, 10 minutes off the winning time. It's a different course here.
She's one of a host of American athletes. We've got Anna Gibson here, we can see on screen. She was 7th in Headlands, 4th in Mammoth, but she's very good at altitude, and she's one of 3 or 4 American athletes who are super new and exciting that I think will be performing well today, knowing this type of trail well and with the track speed they typically bring.
Yeah, Lauren Gregory, another of the USA athletes. They are here in numbers. A home win would be a surprise, but there are 1 or 2 who may just do something special. 25 years old and got a brilliant 3rd place in Headlands last weekend. Has she recovered? Has she got the hunger to do it again?
And this is Yao Miao, our long-distance specialist from China. She came 3rd at Mont Blanc this season, 2nd last year. And we saw in last week's race that with that ultra strength that she was really coming back on the field at the end of the race.
Judith Wyder, one of the athletes that has benefited from the change in the rules due to the cancellation of the Tatra event. So she needs a good race, but she's been in this situation before, back in 2019, where the last of the rounds needed to be brilliant.
And this is, they always put the name up wrong, it's Madalena Floria. She was leading here last year before she got lost. She won our final, an incredibly fast runner, a 1:11 half marathon pace. We expect her to be up at the top, one of the first 2 to reach that peak.
Yeah, Floria started fast last weekend, as did Njiro, the Kenyan, in prime spot, 5.66. She's got, 14 points clear of Floria in the Tour standings at the moment. She's a brilliant climber, and it's going to be interesting to see whether she copes with the technical side of the descent as well as she did last weekend. So those are your top 10. And Wyder, big question mark, David, over her form, and how do you feel she's going to get on?
Well, we've got an interview with her where she tells us a little bit about how she's feeling, and then we can recap on exactly what we expect today.
Mammoth, and it's going to be the last trail race of the Golden Trail World Series this year. I've been in this situation before. 2019, it was the last race, the race in Scotland, and I had to do good. I did good, and I have to do good in this race too. So we'll see how it goes. Mammoth Trail Race is going to be a really fast one. I've raced it last year, but the course has slightly changed, so the downhill will be a bit different. There is a little uphill in between the downhills, so it's going to be changing strategies, I think. If you're destroyed there, the downhill is going to be really tough. So for me, of course, I want to be fit for this downhill and gain time on the others if I'm behind, and if not, try to push ahead and see what is going.
Wyder, of course, who won Mont Blanc. Yeah, I was going to say, David, she won Mont Blanc on the back of her downhill skills. She was absolutely sensational. And that, of course, ties in with her orienteering skills, where she's, been world champion. And you don't get world champion in orienteering without being incredibly agile over the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can see our ladies race starting now, taking it out incredibly fast. We saw last year the speed that they brought in for that first 6K to get to the start of our climb. We'll be expecting something similar today. But we mentioned Judith's downhill speed. What really surprised her last year, because she's known as a technical downhill specialist, some of these trails are very smooth, and she mentioned that little bump around halfway on the downhill that will be a bit more technical, but actually, if you're a fast runner on these trails, that probably counts equally as much as being someone who's very good at running over bumpy, rocky terrain. But we saw last year that the pace that they let it out, it was actually a runner who isn't here today who set the pace going Hail Mary, but we expect runners like Tabor Hemming, who we're yet to mention, and some of our track athletes to be pushing the pace in these first few kilometres.
Yeah, there are some very impressive 5K PBs amongst the field today. The first section of the race to Twin Lakes, probably the easiest. They have a gentle climb and then a short descent and then up again to Twin Lakes, where we hope, get our first split to tell us exactly where the favourites are lying. But already a group of, 15 athletes starting to open up a little gap. Giro is in there looking very, very comfortable at the moment. Who else can you pick out, David?
So we can see on the right with the hair flowing back, the curly hair in the white top. That is Tabor Hemming, who hasn't been in our series this year, but was last year. Anna Gibson is just behind her in the pink top. And then that was Aurea Liacci from Switzerland just off the back of her. We will be deploying a mix of cyclists and drones today to bring the shots to you. But we know the colours of our athletes who we'll be describing. But that at the front is, as expected, Lauren Gregory in the white. We know she's a very fast 5K runner. And so it's no surprise she's using her 15:17 5K pace to push at the front.
26K in all, remember, just a kilometre shorter than last weekend at Headlands. They'll be glad when they get through 7.5K, is it? Up towards the... Well, it's a 7.5K climb, really, to the summit of Mammoth Mountain. And as you mentioned earlier, David, what are we up? 3,365 metres, just over 11,000 feet, if you like it in feet and inches. And that's a big climb. And the rock at the top of these mountains, it's a lava field, a lava mound, essentially. The volcano, the mountain was only formed some 57,000 years ago, which sounds a lot, but you compare that to Ben Nevis, which was 350 million years ago. These are very, very young mountains, and it's soft at the top, pumice rock. There's not been any snowfall, as I understand, at the peaks, so does that slow things down just when the legs need something firm to stand on?
It really does. When you reach that peak, you suddenly feel like you can attack. But as Patrick mentioned, it is soft underfoot, and the altitude makes it hard to run. Significantly for me here, though, we can see a few of our race favourites already. So we've got Lauren Gregory at the front, Madalena Florea in the black, and Joyce Njiru just off her shoulder. The shot we had before, though, showed both Judith Wyder in the blue with the Red Bull top, with the Red Bull hat, headband, but also Yao Miao from China, both very good runners, clearly very happy sitting off the pace and just letting the race unfold ahead of them. And so that it looks as if already there are some people wanting to make distance on the fast sections, and others who are actually more comfortable allowing the race come to them, knowing that the downhills is when they can make those attacks.
Yeah, quite a spread already.
This is Anna Gibson on our right in the pink, and this is Aurea Liacci from Switzerland on our left. Rachel, just off the back of them, Rachel Thomas from America.
Well, this is
Now,
certainly
Anna
the
Gibson,
fastest section of the course. Sorry, David. In terms of the climbing, is it fair to say the serious climb starts at Twin Lakes? Nothing to trouble them between the start and Twin Lakes, which comes at what, 5.7k?
hopefully it shouldn't be troubling them. But some of these athletes will be starting to notice the altitude, because not everyone's had as an equal an opportunity to adjust to it. But we saw Anna Gibson there. She did incredibly well at Pikes Peak last year in our season, which was 2,000 meters of ascent, climbing up to over 4,000 meters. So we know that she's an incredibly good climber and also can handle altitude. Significantly for me, amongst these front four, the person who responded best this season in altitude was Joyce and Giroux in China, where similarly we were at 4,000 meters. She won that race quite comfortably. So we know that her base of living in Kenya allows her to get used to this level of altitude. But we've got Judith just off the back here on the right.
Yeah, and Giroux, what was she? Over 4 minutes clear in the Four Sisters race in China. It was early season and not everyone racing today was there. That's one of the interesting things about the series, because you've only got to do usually 4, but this year it's turned out to be 3. Some athletes sit out maybe a race that doesn't suit them. They make sure they get the rest. But I really like the idea, David, that they've grouped the races together. We got 2 in the USA with just 7 days between them. We had Japan and China within 7 days of each other, just to try and cut down on the air miles that the athletes have to cover.
And responding so quickly in that 1 week is one of the challenges. Unfortunately for Judith, Judith came 4th last week, and after the race it was extremely cold. And we know that she struggled with trying to get warm while she was waiting to do her anti-doping test. And so actually this week she has struggled a bit with her health. And it could be an early sign that she's not necessarily going to be able to perform at her full potential today. The fact that she is already quite far back from even our top 5. But we have 4 at the moment. Joyce Nijiru at the front in the blue there, you can see leading out. Madalena Florea from Romania in black on the left. Lauren Gregory from America on the right. And Tabor Hemming on the left in the white as well, also representing America.
Yeah, Vida, in terms of Judith Vida, what do you think her aims are in terms of the overall standings in the series? She's, as we mentioned at the top of the programme, she's down in 14th and she's 200 points down on Njiro. If she's going to win the series, she's got to she's got to win really, and hope that Njiro and Florea both have a really bad day. That doesn't look as though it's going to happen.
Yeah, and coming into this trip to America, she won in Mont Blanc ahead of Madalena. It was a fantastic performance, and I think at that stage in the race and the season, she felt that the whole season was wide open and that she could potentially win this season. We know that Sophia Lockley was unfortunately struggling with finding form and was injured out. Maud Mathis similarly has been carrying an injury, but look at this attack. I mean, just opening up there on this downhill. It looks like Rachel Thomas, who's at the front. She came 10th last week. She was 10th last season. So she really is striding out in a way that I wouldn't expect her to be doing at this stage in the race. I don't think she's ever led a Golden Trail race before. I can't remember seeing her in the top 3 before. So already this is going to be playing with the minds of Joyce and Madalena and Lauren, who are chasing.
Yeah, clocking 21.1 kilometres an hour on that last section. That's a 2-hour marathon. Well, there are the stats for Rachel Thomas, the race leader at the moment. this does seem very, very early to be making a break, but you know, everyone has a race plan, David, and hers has taken us by surprise. It certainly take all the other runners by surprise as well.
And the fact, I mean, look at the distance that she's put in to this group of 5. The fact that no one else has gone with her, to me, suggests that she's got her pace wrong there slightly. I did see, going back through the Headlands race last week, she was running in the top 5 in the first hill, and so clearly has got a very good track pace. But and this is one of the challenges with our track athletes. When do you use your track speed? Because this will feel so comfortable for the vast majority of them, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right time to deploy your pace. You will be burning your glycogen stores at a high level, and that is going to start to tire you significantly towards the end of the race.
Yeah, just talk us through the differences between today's race, which is essentially one big climb and one long, fast descent with the up and over that we talked about at the start. But Headlands a very, very different ball game with three sort of medium length climbs.
Yeah, those medium length climbs are very useful for our downhill runners. The fact, and you can see them there having to jump across the stones, they'll be thinking, don't get your feet wet. And already,
there's
wow,
the first mistake.
You've seen Joyce has gone. I hope that won't happen a lot today, but this did decide the race last year where Madalena took a wrong turn. And you may have seen there were some small flags on the ground. That is how the course is laid today, with small orange flags, I believe. But you've got to stay concentrated and focused, because you can see already she's lost 10 meters just with that small mistake. She was lucky the other athletes were there. If they weren't, she may have run on and lost significant time. Yeah,
lucky that she took most of them with her as she went. Tomasz has lost her position at the front, and we were talking about the flags. You were saying most of them are smaller than the postcard. When you're running, and particularly towards the end of the race, when you're absolutely at your wit's end, you need as much help as you can get on the sort of course setting and the course direction. Are those flags sufficient, or do you think everyone just has to be fully aware of what they're looking for?
If you're experienced with them, they are manageable. And the key is to remember to concentrate on the corners. We can see here there are no flags once you're on the trail and you continue going in the same direction. But one of the challenges with a course like this, they call it the Californian carpet. And you can see there aren't significant rocks, but there are still enough stones that if you're not careful, and particularly on the mountain biking track, where you may have the line of the bikes carving into that carpet, you do need to concentrate on where you're placing your feet so you don't turn an ankle. And that means it can be harder to concentrate on the turns and ensuring you are going in the right direction.
So Njiru, having made that little mistake, very quickly recovered, puts herself in front. As you can see, she won in Headlands, and she won the second race of the year in China, the Four Sisters Mountain Trail Race this year. She looks on very, very good form and is really odds-on favourite. What she's had, 2 wins, 1 fourth, so that takes her tally so far up to 566. Floria, who's had 2 second places and a 3rd place finish, is on 552. Those are the 2 big contenders, with the absence of Maud Mathis.
And look at that gap already. I mean, she's really making a dent on her. Yesterday, Joyce did say that she wanted to just be in the lead group. She didn't want to be pushing out unless it felt comfortable. So clearly she's feeling in fantastic form. Of these 2, Madalena is actually known as the better climber. We saw that in last week's race, and Joyce is known for her aggression on the flat and the descent. And so, and as it gets steeper, that's where you can see she's able to close this gap a little bit. But partly because of the altitude, it is allowing Joyce to just be more successful on the uphills. And Madalena will be nervous because she led out over the top last year. And knowing how fast Joyce is on the descents, she is going to be very aware that she's going to have to risk a little bit more on these climbs to stand a chance of winning this race.
Just looking at Fleury there, is that physio tape down the back or a new design of top that I've not come across before?
Yeah, that is, I think that actually is tape that she has on there. But we do know Madalena is very well good at very good at changing how she adjusts her kit with some colours and flowers. Now we are seeing our top 10 men coming. This is Daniel Pattis from Italy. He has come third in China, so we know he's good at altitude. He was feeling under the weather last week. He should be performing well today. We then have Miquel from Spain, his first ever top 6 last weekend, a very good climber. He has been adjusting to altitude, so I'd expect to see him in the mix in the first half of our race. And this is Cesare Maestri from Italy. He's pretty much undefeated snow running world champion and had a great performance last week. He's top 3 in Sierras now previously.
Is it going to be a day for the Kenyans? I wonder. They've certainly shown some great style this year. Kipingeno and
Patrick Kipingeno.
Kiriago.
He's won twice this season already.
Remy Bonnet, the only man to do the vertical K 2 days ago. He set himself a really tough target. I see Chad Hall did the vertical K and then won the 50 yesterday, so he's had a good week so far.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Chad. Impressive running. He sadly got lost on this trail last year when he was in a very good position. But this is Philemon Kiriaga. He's come second twice already this season. He knows he needs to do something different today to try and either shake off El Hussein or to tactically time his sprint finish better, because it just hasn't quite come together for him yet, and he's desperate for a win this season.
And of course, the tour leader, Hussein El Azoui from Morocco, 588 points his total. He's only 12 points clear of Kipingeno, so it's going to be a really tough finish to the season. But my goodness, he has gone some 5 races. He's had 5 podium finishes, 2 wins, 2 second, 1 third. What is today going to bring? Can he produce a sprint finish like we saw in Headlands last weekend? It was quite sensational, and he took the win by a mere 2 seconds. And the Moroccan fans will be keeping their fingers crossed for him. The men just about to get underway. The women have started the first section of climbing. And it is Joyce Njeru who has the lead at the moment, with Floria hot on her tail.
And you can see the sun blaring down on them. And this is actually one of the challenges. It may look incredibly warm if you're watching at home, but when you get to the top, it is very exposed. There is a whipping wind. It is cold at that altitude. But we're expecting today to see a very different race to Headlands. Remy Bonnet knows that he has to try and win this race in the first half on that climb. He was content to sit back in Headlands and hope that he could then beat them on the third climb. But they're so fast, our front three, our 2 Kenyans and El Hussein, that I expect them to be attacking early, and even Philemon knows he needs to do something different today to try and win this.
Just a few seconds before the men's race gets underway. The women have been in action for over 19 minutes now, coming up to that 20-minute mark. And I'm expecting to see a start just as fast as we saw from the women's. El Azoui, Kipingeno, Kiriago, Bonnet. Do we look anywhere else for the winner, or is the winner going to come from those top 4?
I mean, often with Golden Trail, there's the opportunity for new talent to come through. I mean, we've got Christian Allen running for America, who's an incredibly fast 10K. He's got a 28:26. But those four have been so dominant this season. They just seem to have a huge gap between them and anyone else. And in headlands for 2/3 of the race, they were locked together, never more than 3-5 seconds apart. So I think we may have in the first 7K some local American runners potentially up with them who are feeling easy, who are enjoying this altitude. But I can't see by the peak or by the finish anyone upsetting that top four, unless, like last year, they get lost again. But this is Philemon Kiriago pushing the pace already. This is great to see. We know that he has an incredibly fast closing speed. He's not the best climber compared to our other top four. So clearly he's strategically trying to eat up ground and get a bit of a lead while he can.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to find a way of winning. We're going to see whether he's worked it out in the space of 7 days. I think a word also, David, to those runners brave enough, if you can use the word brave, to enter the vertical K, the 50 and the 26K in 3 successive days. It costs you a mere $340 to do it. I would need a couple of zeros on the end of that and the money going the other way. That is a punishing routine.
I mean, I don't know why this is still existing in our sport. It's been a tradition of ultra racing and also of obstacle racing, but it just isn't good for the body. But we can see here already Philemon pushing the pace and Remy Bonnet in the cap of Red Bull there, tucked in behind. Quite surprising that we don't see El Hussein and we don't see Patrick. We can see Patrick in the yellow, just next to Fred Tronchard in the black, and behind them Miquel Corbera from Spain. So some gaps forming already, and El Hussein is in the middle of our shot now, clearly making moves, wanting to just settle into this race. He's decided that they're getting too far ahead and is now responding to make sure they don't get too big a gap.
Yeah, it's a bit early to be pressing the panic button at this stage. Things surely will settle down. Now, a word about Bonnet, Remy Bonnet, who's in the cap. We've ID'd him. He's up in the top 4 at the moment. He's actually sitting on the left there next to Kiriago. The vertical K, 48 hours ago. It's a brutal race. He made it look incredibly easy. Now, we know that last year he spent, what was it, 6 weeks using a sort of hypoxic chamber to sleep in, to sort of benefit from the effects of altitude. He's done the same again this year, I believe. But does that help you recover from a VK in the space of 48 hours?
He's going to have a little bit of tiredness in his legs. One of the joys of a vertical kilometer climb, which is where you climb 1,000 meters in around 3 kilometers of distance, is because you're not running downhill, it doesn't punish your quads, it doesn't punish your legs in quite the same way as a road run or a downhill race. But for me, last year, he didn't run the VK. He hasn't run the VK before a race for many years. And I think he did it partly for confidence, partly to figure out how he's feeling, but also because he wanted to remind himself of this course, because I believe he is planning an attack on the first climb to try and separate the field, because he still wants to win and he still believes he can.
Well, he is, of course, the defending champion. 1:54.48 his winning time last year. Rousseau was what, 1:58.48. Roberto De Lorenzi, who's racing today, 1:59.53 last year. So quite a spread between the top 3. And Bonnet knows this course, and it's going to be fascinating to see if it was all about deciding where you make your break. Where will he do it? Will he choose the steepest section, which is generally where the strongest athletes go?
I think he will. So to talk you through how this course, we can see we just had a glimpse of Joyce, our leader there, and she is yet to really start the aggressive climbing that we see after Twin Lakes. The beginning of our substantial climb is a little bit more technical. We'll see the rocks to the side. There may even be some breakup of their running as they try and stride out, which can be quite frustrating if you're not used to it. That's the steeper section. As they get halfway up the climb, it then opens up into the top of our mountain, and that then becomes slightly more powdery and harder to run. I think he's actually going to attack from the bottom. We talked about briefly before the start of the men's how having 3 hills last week was different to this one hill. And the big difference was that having a shorter climb means that your downhill runners have less time trying to cling on to our uphill specialists. And so we saw Philemon Kiriego, our current leader, able to keep the pace with Patrick Kipagino and Remy Bonnet, our 2 climbers. Remy knows today, though, with that longer climb, it's going to be far harder for Philemon to cling on to him. And so he's going to really make him suffer and try and break him on that first climb, hoping to build a big enough gap to hold the lead by the finish. We saw Lauren Gregory in 3rd there briefly, our new athlete to the season this year, and from America. And we are now with our 2nd place runner.
The women approaching 5.8 kilometers, coming up towards Twin Lakes, and it's a beautiful part of the course, but they know full well that that is where the hard work really starts. And Floria, whoa, a little bit delicate over the road there. That's that's an area where it really helps to know the course. They've had a few days here. Most of them would have had a good look at these tricky sections in terms of navigation.
Yeah, they have, but even seeing that corner, I mean, we could see it on screen. It was very obvious a turn was coming. But if you're not concentrated, then it's very easy to just forget what you're doing. You're thinking about something else. And the athletes have seen the majority of the course, but Joyce hasn't significantly. She's been here since Monday, and she said in an interview a few days back that she doesn't actually like to see the course in advance necessarily, because she gets very nervous before she races, and when she knows the course, she then overthinks during the race and develops pressure in her mind of how hard she should be running at different times. So she's gone out blind, hoping that means she won't stress as much during the race, that she won't have any expectations. So she will be running very much to feel right now, which could be a benefit, but means she doesn't know when to attack, and also it's more likely she'll get lost on our downhill.
Yeah, that is obviously a big concern. 27 now in Giro. She from Kenya, obviously. She spends a lot of time in Austria, and is the oldest of, what, 5 sisters, I think. It's a big family, and they all run like the wind. She got her first win, what was it, back in 2017 at the age of 19. That was the Gurnkogel, and she hasn't really looked back since then. She's certainly one of the world's best mountain runners.
So this is our man at the head of the race. I think this is Garrett, who is a local runner, a very good runner, who's been camping out in his van all week. He had an incredibly fast start at Headlands as well, but finished outside of our top 10. So clearly he's a very fast track runner, a very fast flat runner. I'm quite confused by this, though. He's clearly going too fast at this stage. But the fact that he's a well-known person on the tour, I don't think that will be causing too many worries for our 2nd and 3rd place runners. But we can see our fantastic 4 already grouped together as we expected.
Yeah, how often do we see the home nation leading in the early stages of a race? There's just something that drives you on, makes you believe you're a little bit better than you actually are, and so often it comes unstuck. It would be nice if it didn't, but everyone has an optimal pace, and we will see whether he's got it right or wrong, and I suspect we'll see that in the next 20 minutes or so.
Now, one of the challenges of this race is trying to change from the uphill to the downhill. And we've mentioned Judith and Madalena, and they were first and second over the top last year. And Judith had been planning to make an attack on that downhill and was surprised by how fast Madalena actually took off as soon as she started getting on the descent. But we're here now with our 4 male race leaders as expected. We have, it looks like Patrick Kipangino at the back, El Hussein in the brown, and then our race leaders, Philemon and Remy at the front.
The top 4 in the series, in the top 4 positions. Well, no prizes for predicting the top 4 after just 10 minutes of racing. The women have been on the trail for half an hour now. Winning time last year for the women's race, Judith Wyder clocked a 2:18.20. I think there's a chance that Madalena Fleury would have been a bit quicker than that had she not got lost. So we're looking at around the 2:20 mark for the women, and the men, as we mentioned earlier on, Remy Bonnet, the defending champion here at Mammoth, 1:54.48, and he certainly looks to be in the sort of form to beat that. And he said after last year, when he just missed out on beating 2 hours at Pikes Peak, he said he was going to spend even more time in his hypoxic chamber, and he may have done that.
Yeah, I mean, he knows that to perform here, he needs to get an advantage this season in particular. And we're just looking at this Nicholas in white and Sam Hendry from Canada, who came 4th last year in the green, and his new peroxide blonde hair. This isn't actually the start of our substantial climb yet. This is just part of the casual climbing they'll do throughout the first 5th of the race. So I don't expect to see any big moves being made from our top 4 at this stage. They know that when they finish this ski slope climb, they've still got around 2 kilometers of fairly undulating course before they reach the climb proper. So they'll be looking around, seeing how everyone is responding, how their breathing is, to gauge who is actually feeling like they can run well today. But we don't expect to see any significant moves quite yet, because it will give an opportunity for them to regroup if they do. They want to make sure when they attack, it's on the long climb, so they can really push the other athletes into the red zone.
Well, it's been a good start from Remy Bonnet so far, and I believe we have got him lined up for a quick interview. So let's hear from the man who won the vertical kilometer just 2 days ago.
The last race of the season, so I am motivated to finish well before the final. I think it's good to have a good result before to go to the final for the confidence. So I will give my best. I think the shape is good. I like altitude, so here it's perfect for me, I think. I showed last year that altitude don't affect me that much. So I will try to play with that on Sunday, and we'll see at the end. I think I will copy a bit the last year race, to start with the leaders until the bottom of the climb. And then I think I will play my card from the start of the climb till the summit, to try to make a gap, a big gap, bigger it is, better it is, because then it's really rolling until the finish. So if I have a good gap on the summit, it will be perfect for me. And then I know that in the downhill, the Kenyan guys and Elusin can take some time on me, but if you have 1 minute or a bit more on the top, it's hard to take it from me. So I will try my best to make a gap in the uphill and then fight until the finish.
Well, what constitutes a big gap?
It's a good question. Elusin suggested he thinks he can run 2 to 3 minutes faster on the downhill than Remy can, which is quite a large gap to try and build if that is the case for Remy. But you know, Remy came into this trip to America undefeated in American soil. The last 2 times he's come out to the States, he's been in absolutely peak form and destroyed the field. But this year, he's really struggled to find that form. Interestingly, though, similar story for Patrick. Patrick started this season winning the first 2 races, and in headlands, he was off the back the whole time. He never attacked those climbs, and I just don't think he's got the energy levels, and he's a bit tired coming in the end of the season, and winning this season is about peaking for the final, and right now it doesn't look like all our athletes are capable of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a reminder that this is the last round before the final, so loads at stake. Obviously the points at the top going into the last final, where you have a prologue, which I believe is worth 100 points, and then the main race in Switzerland worth 300 points. So still 400 points up for grabs after today, but so important if you want a good position, that you're in a position to challenge at the end of today. And I think in the men's that really comes down to four athletes. And then, of course, you know, if you want a cheaper ride through the Golden Trail Series next year, finishing in the top 30 of the standings becomes important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we had the American runner Garrett Cochran on screen there, still holding the pace. But interesting, we're seeing some gaps appear already. And Elisine, we know, doesn't like to lead pretty much ever until the finish line. He'll bide his time. But you can see that Philemon is pushing the pace again. And Sierra's now really gave him confidence this year when he came second, but caught up Kylian Jornet on the final descent. He wouldn't normally be someone we'd expect to lead out the hills, but last week we saw he was aggressive on the climbs. He clearly wants to win this, and he's feeling good. So already an indicator potentially of how this race will unfold. And if it's like last week, that for me means Patrick may struggle to deliver the performance he's shown early on in this season.
Yeah, Patrick Kipingeno in 3rd place in this group here. David, are you concerned at all about the gap between Remy Bonnet and Patrick Kipingeno? What is it, 15 meters? The advantage is that you can see where you're putting your feet, and as you mentioned, concentration and you know, foot placement is absolutely key, but you wouldn't want a 15-20 meter gap to open up at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, the more it stretches out, the harder it is to bring back. We saw in headlands that the distance that Patrick was comfortable having was around 5 seconds. He didn't really go through any checkpoints further than that, and he seems to be in that position now. But we're seeing our course here, and you can see the substantial climbing happen after the first third of our race. So you can see how smooth that course is there. That's where they are currently, and then it's just an incredibly fast downhill with one little bump into our finish. So that's 26K with around 1,100 meters of climbing. The data has changed since we have done this graphic.
Yeah, the 1,400 meters not strictly accurate. If you can remember the map, they're approaching that bottom left-hand corner, Twin Lakes. And as you saw from the profile, that is where the steeper climbing starts. We've got 5 men out front, 1 local, and then the 4 best Golden Trail runners of the season so far, all vying for top spot going into the final. If Kipingeno can win today, then he will go there with a maximum of 600 points. The same applies for Elizawi. And then Kiriago, who's had 2 second places, he really needs a win to close that gap down on the top 2.
And in fact, it's a different athlete to, it is not Garrett Cochran. We just had confirmed Jonas Soldini, who is surprising to see him up at this level. I still do think that is Garrett Cochran, based on his running form, but we will try and confirm that for you.
Yeah, Soldini was second place in the vertical K behind his compatriot Remy Bonnet.
Yeah, he was a very good climber, and we can see him taking it out hard. We're just going to get absolute confirmation. Yes, it is in fact Jonas Soldini. And the fact that he has done the VK as well, he shows that he's very confident on the climbing there. But now we can see a big gap between our top 4. And as we expected, Remy Bonnet is up at the front with Philemon Kiriago. We can see the climb starting to kick in now. They're not quite at the stage of the aggressive climb yet, so they are still flowing on undulated terrain here. So I don't expect Remy to attack quite yet until they come through that aid station at Twin Lakes.
Yeah, Bonnet taking, over a minute out of Soldini on the vertical climb 2 days ago, so I think won't be too worried. But the Swiss doing exceptionally well, getting 1 and 2 in the first race of this trail festival. And I had a look through. Yeah, it's growing and growing, but it's still such early days. How concerned do we need to be?
Yeah, so I mean, this is real aggression from Philemon. Given that we're expecting our 4 male athletes, our fantastic 4, to be grouped together, he's really pulling away from Remy here. I don't think the rest will be too concerned, but we've not seen this type of gapping early on in the race, and we weren't expecting this at all. So Philemon clearly is feeling good, but also this is his plan of attack. He must have decided he needs to be making moves early. And we're now at the... This says the head of the race. I don't think this is the head of the race. I think we're looking at 3rd and 4th here. We have El Hassin at the front, and just behind them we have Patrick Kipagino. I think we're watching 3rd and 4th, and we've seen already Philemon and Remy striding out. We're just going to confirm that exact split.
Yeah, El Hassin is uninformed about the route, as we saw from Injiro. So he lost a valuable couple of seconds there, but probably more importantly, he had to go from 0 up to full speed again. Didn't carry any momentum around the corner.
And we did have a flash on screen there to Philemon, who I believe is actually our race leader. El Hassin and Patrick in 3rd and 4th, and in 5th place now we have Jonas Soldini. Great performance for him. Let's hope that he can hold it up for that. The distance of 26K, clearly a VK specialist.
So beautiful setting here. They'll be way up above the tree line by the time they reach the top of Mammoth Mountain. Back on a little bit of tarmac for Kiriago. He'll use his flat speed to benefit from that. And I'm pretty sure he will have been aware that Bonnet was going to attack at the start of the steep climb, and absolutely right to come up with a tactic that might throw a spanner in the work of the great Swiss runner.
And one of the challenges is he knows that he's faster than Remy on the downhill, but El Hassin last weekend and in other races have shown just how devastating he is finishing off a race. And so part of his strategy now is trying to actually create gaps with El Hassin. He's had twice El Hassin on his shoulder in last year's final and in Headlands, and lost the sprint finish. And so he's clearly decided that he needs to break up that pack of 4 so that El Hassin can't work with Remy. He can't be on the shoulder of someone fast, and that hopefully will give him the ability to bridge, to create a gap at the top. And I think if he's at the top by himself, he'll feel confident that he can actually hold his position down to the finish without El Hussein catching up too much.
Little bit of altitude gain, as you can see on the top left of your screen. They're up at 2615. They're going all the way up to 3,365. So over 750 vertical meters still to climb. And
we've also got some
very
splits from our. We've got some splits from our ladies' field as well, and we can confirm Joyce is still in the lead, going through Twin Lakes in 26:21. An 18-second lead on Madalena Florea, but we are going to hear from Philemon about his race strategy and exactly what he's got planned for us today.
For sure, Mammoth is a very nice course. I last year, but unfortunately I missed the route. But this year, I'm full focused. I'm not going to lose the route again. My target is to land on a podium side. If possible, if God willing, I'm happy to win because I've never won any competition this year. I'm coming position 2, 3, 2, 3. Maybe it will be mine. If I miss it, I will try finals because I want to win one race before the end of the season.
Well, he won in Sierra Zinal last year, but as he said himself, he has not won so far this year. He's hungry for that victory, and that has got to be an important factor. Now we start to see some of the steeper sections on the Dragon's Back, a famous climb up towards the top of Mammoth Mountain. Footing really important. We've already mentioned the sort of dusty gravel underneath. You want to be so careful not to waste energy on that, and I guess footwear is absolutely crucial. Did you get a look to see what they're wearing?
I didn't today, actually. I did go to the start line to give them all a bit of a cheer, but they didn't show me the undersoles of their feet, sadly. But this is looking like it's Madalena Florea in the center of our picture. On the top right, we can see Joyce and Giroux. They will be able to see each other, so they'll be aware of each other's position. Behind them, Lauren Gregory is still in third place. She came third last week in Headlands, and she rates herself more as a kind of aggressive downhill trail runner, using her pace for that. So our top three all super close, and all still with a very good chance of hitting that top position in the race today.
Yeah, I think that was Florea doubling back on her own route, so that could have been a few valuable seconds lost. If you're wondering why there are two athletes up front, there's a camera runner. Some world-class runners have to be brought in for this event. Athletes that can, one, keep pace with these runners, and two, operate a camera at the same time. So you cannot really look at your feet. The orienteers are sort of high in demand when it comes to that sort of role.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see even from here just how difficult it can be to run over some of this terrain. You are having to climb, you are having to scramble a little bit, and that very much changes your muscle groups. If you're not used to it, it can actually tire out your legs quite a lot. But just to confirm the splits we've had through from our ladies, Joyce was around 20 seconds ahead of Madalena. From Romania, Lauren Gregory from America, 20 seconds behind her. Tabor Hemming in fourth, 20 seconds down, with Arda Gibson. In fact, 5 Americans in our top 7, and 7 Americans in our top 10. Wow, this is fantastic for America. So just to confirm, Arda Gibson in 5th in 27:35. Rachel Drake in 6th, Rachel Tomash in 7th, 28:05, Aurelia Liachi in 8th, Alia Strander in 9th, and M.K. Sullivan in 10th in 28:29. So our top 10 all within 2 minutes of each other at the first checkpoint.
Well, that bodes well for an exciting finish to the race. I missed Judith Wyder on that list, David. Where have you got her at the moment?
Yeah, I did worry whether Judith was going to finish today. She's had a really tough week, so we haven't seen the split on her yet. We're hoping she's still in and pacing well, but we're just waiting for confirmation on that. So we're just waiting
obviously
on
with the
confirmation split from Judith.
Yeah, with the terrain and the remoteness of the trail at this section, getting the pictures out very, very difficult. So what we'll do is just give you some insight into how they get the footage on these sort of races, how they beam it back in real time to the control center, and then obviously out on the various feeds. And we're going to have a chat with Sébastien Chagnoux, who is the man who has to manage all the runners and bikers who carry the cameras.
So that was Sébastien on our screen there, directing things from the control center. He's a trail runner and an ultra runner himself. He's come second and third in UTMB in the past.
Says, my name's Sébastien Chagnoux. I'm a trail runner, ultra runner, in charge of setting up the live event. He says they have to recruit people who are world-class runners and bikers because the terrain and the speed make it so difficult.
I'm actually going to get a ride in a car just to be safe and then get on the gondola.
All the information that gets sent to the control room by your phones, he's telling the riders, is in real time, like instant speed. Your position allows us to get the gaps between the leaders and dress up the live coverage. Explaining that in the rolling sections where they're at 20, 21 kilometers an hour, we're much more likely to take the riders off with a bike, with a camera, rather than the runners. So we've got 6 mountain bikers, and it's an incredibly technical trail, so that's a difficult job on its own. Saying he thinks the thinks the boys are up there. You're going to have to be ready because the leaders are flying.
Le challenge le plus excitant, c'est de pouvoir faire ressentir au public ce que moi j'ai pu vivre en tant que coureur dans le passé.
Most exciting challenge is to be able to let the public experience what they're experiencing out on the trails and the feelings that come from going fast on the course. It's a really awesome job. They've done a brilliant job all the way through the season, David, and we saw in Mont Blanc, you know, they have to take it in turns, but some of those runners are absolutely phenomenal, how they keep pace with some of the world's best hill climbers.
Yeah, and they truly are world-class athletes, some of them, and they will be competing in orienteering or even in the Golden Trail National Series. We've seen them perform at an extremely high level. So they train specifically to be able to run with cameras and cycle on terrain like this. Now, we have had confirmation that unfortunately it looks like Judith Wyder is a minute outside of our top 10 currently. I'd be very surprised if she doesn't drop out of the race, considering that there's no real reason for her to continue battling. But look at this. The story of this race is we have a lot of American athletes showing as Swiss in terms of the flags, but Ali Ostrander, MK Sullivan, Rachel Tomash, Arne Gibson, Lauren Gregory, and Tabor Hemming, all representing America. That is the new, and Rachel Drake. That is the probably the biggest news of today is how dominant the American field is here.
Yeah, Twin Lakes in the background. They'll get a very, very good view of that as they climb the Dragon's Back. And, of course, the flatlands in the distance. Just a reminder, we're, 4.5 hours drive from San Francisco. It's a beautiful, beautiful area.
We have had some splits through on the men's as well. We'll be bringing those shortly. And I can confirm it was Garrett Cochran who was in 5th place. He's having the race of his life, particularly if you think that he's ahead of runners like Christian Allen. We know that Gareth has he's got a good 5K time, a 14:07 5K time. But the fact that he is ahead of a runner like Christian Allen, who is a 26 10K runner, suggests to me he's gone out a bit fast.
Well, here are some pictures from earlier on. The top four starting steady. Wasn't long before Enduro started to establish herself at the front ahead of Madalena Florea. The men's race starting 20 minutes after the women's, and again some of the flat runners taking full advantage of an easy section leading towards the Twin Lakes. But Enduro and Florea looking as though they're going to have a similar battle to the one that they had last week in Headlands. Those two have been going at it all season long. And in the men's, the Kenyans are up there. Alazui is up there, as we would have expected. Remy Bonnet waiting for the steep climb to start before he pushes the accelerator. And Patrick Kipagino, David, are you slightly concerned that he's not at 100%?
Yeah, he's been looking tired, and even when I went out for a run with the three Kenyan runners 4 days ago, he was sweating when the rest of us weren't, and I just think he's over-raced a little bit this season. And to perform so well early on in your first 2 races, we haven't seen anyone in Golden Trail who's managed to dominate from the beginning to the start of the season. So the beginning to the end of the season. If we think of last year's final, Remy and Sophia, both winners overall, didn't perform in the final because it's such a long season. And so I do think Patrick's bringing that fatigue, and the fact that he's not up even on the climbs suggests to me that he's unlikely to be winning today's race.
Well, still slight shortage of live pictures. We're sort of waiting for them to get a little bit higher when they come out of the tree line. Certainly we'll get to see exactly where they are. We do know that Enduro is still leading the women's, and Kiriago certainly seems to be the man who's gone hardest in the men's at the moment, but he has not shaken off his main rivals. Jonas Soldini, do you think, is he a threat?
I wouldn't expect so. And so just to confirm, we've seen Jonas, who is currently sat in 6th position, and Garrett Cochran in 5th. But our 4 were looking strong together, and we are currently seeing on screen, this looks like Philemon at the front, Patrick Kipagino in 2nd, and El Hussein in 3rd at the back. The question is Remy Bonnet ahead of this group or behind this group? Form to me would suggest Remy is ahead. I don't believe that. In fact, that looks like Remy at the back of the shot. He's just come in. So, wow, the big news is that Philemon, Patrick, and El Hussein are building a gap over Remy Bonnet, despite Remy being known as the world's best climber.
Yeah, Bonnet back in, you can see him just on the left of your screen there with the Red Bull cap on, and he's still moving nicely. I wonder whether he had to stop or whether he was leading and went the wrong way. It just doesn't quite add up that he's lost so much ground in the early stages of the big climb.
It doesn't, but he knows this course better than the other athletes. He raced here last week. He's been at the course looking at all the turns and has been up on this hill at least twice this week and raced it once. So it is quite perplexing. His time last year was slower than his time this year in the VK, and he said he felt more comfortable in the VK. So whether just the level of Golden Trail has increased on last season substantially. And we know last season, Patrick came into this race with an issue with his knee. He didn't really perform at his best throughout the whole of last season. And so we're now starting to see some gaps open up. And the question really is whether they can build enough of a gap on El Hussein up this climb. And it's actually Patrick at the front now. Everything I said, I'm eating my words. Patrick is back on form and clearly is feeling good again, using his vertical kilometer world championship winning pace.
And Remy Bonnet, of course, the only one of the top athletes to have raced the vertical K 48 hours ago. That has to be a big question mark. I can't see too many coaches saying do a vertical K 2 days before you do a really, really important 26K, which could determine the outcome of the Tour this year.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be part of the tradition of races like this, that the VK on the Friday was done by everyone. And the last athlete I can think who did a VK before the race was Davide Magnini back in Mont Blanc 2-3 years ago. And at that stage, it was clear he'd done the VK to build his confidence. And it seems like a similar story today. But this is our race leader, Joyce and Giroux, out at the front, looking great on these steep climbs. I mean, we're not going to worry too much about the pace on this climb because it's the altitude and the rockiness. We wouldn't expect to see her running at this stage. She's absolutely power hiking up the Dragon's Back.
Yeah, Joyce, who does a lot of training in the Longonot Hills, just north of Nairobi, so she's no stranger to this sort of terrain. And she's certainly no stranger to the heat at this stage, although, as David said, as they approach the summit here, the temperatures will plummet. And they do get snow at this time of year, but only a sprinkling. The weather actually clearing up on Thursday, so it's been perfectly planned.
Yeah, and she trains in where she trains is 2,400 meters in Kenya. So this will be normal for her to race at this altitude. We do know with Joyce, though, she said in the press conference that at Sierra Zanao, it's the first race where she's felt good before the race and has discovered mid-race that it can just fall apart against your expectations. We know she struggled with her nutrition during her races and has gone out too fast several times, even this season. And so she may be leading now, but she has shown an inability to close out some races. So we've just got to hope that she's got a nutrition strategy tied down a little bit better today, because Madalena is a very fast descender, and behind her, we're yet to really see the kind of pace that Lauren Gregory can bring to a downhill like this. But given her 5K time and her track speed, it wouldn't surprise me if she is also a very powerful descender.
In terms of nutrition, obviously today's a shorter race. It's still around the 2 hours, so glycogen not so much of a problem as it is in the 50K yesterday. What would you recommend for a race of this intensity, but taking around the 2 hour mark?
Yeah, it can be a hard one because the fact they're at altitude also means they're going to dehydrate at a quicker rate than if they were lower down. And so it's partly about trying to ensure that you're getting a good mix of your carbohydrates, but also potentially some electrolytes in there. They are allowed to pick up one race bottle at the summit. There are 4 aid stations with product, with drink that you need to carry your own cup to receive. But I think our athletes are only be taking one changeover. And so that's not a huge amount of aid stations. If we think back to last weekend at Headlands, they had 3 opportunities to change. Races like Sierra Zanao 30K, where this is a 26, they have at least 3 opportunities to change. And so it will be hard for them to actually take on enough liquid unless they're stopping with a cup, which I'd imagine most of them don't have on them. But this is Lauren Gregory and Anna Gibson working together now. Lauren in the white, Anna in the pinky orange top behind.
No, we're expecting...
These two actually know each other.
Yeah. What, Madalena Fleury, you think just a little bit ahead of these? Certainly from the last split that we had, she was.
I suspect so, and I think this might be Rachel Drake just behind, making the overtake here. Just trying to see the confirmation of the name. She's an ultra runner who is an incredibly talented and gifted runner. Came on the series 4 years ago for Ola Denuria, but she is a mother of she has a 2-year-old and also works in medicine. She's a specialist in anesthesiologist, and so doesn't really have the hours and the time to be training at the level that the other athletes are. So, you know, we're seeing her performing here. This is natural talent we're seeing on offer here. The fact that she's able in these shorter races to overtake our track specialist, you know, incredible performance from her so far.
So often the case in these endurance events, particularly in triathlon, that when you get an athlete who works full time and races at elite level, they're in medicine for some reason. Yeah, driven people, very, very talented. But my goodness, you've got to commit.
And we've mentioned Jonas Saldini as well. He's a medical student at the moment, you know, a Salomon athlete out of Switzerland, and so I'm sure he's having a similar challenge of trying to fit in the time to train while also doing incredible hours, often on shift work. But this is the summit, as you can see. It's going to be some time still before they reach the summit. Last year, they came through in just around an hour for our men, and I think around 12 minutes slower than that for our women. So we expect to see the women coming at the peak in the next 5 or so minutes.
Yeah, I'd say that's about right. They've been on the road for an hour and 6, an hour and 7 now by my clock. Injuru, to be honest, she's not looking quite as smooth as some of the Americans chasing her up the hill. But she built herself a decent lead before they got to Twin Lakes. So she's taking full advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And she'll be delighted to be leading at the top. She knows that she's got a very fast downhill pace, and she's good technically as well, so I can't see this downhill troubling her. It's just whether she's gone out a little bit too fast and whether nutrition is spot on or not.
Well, now we're going to get a chat with Thomas Ditch, one of the bikers on the course. He says he thinks he has the best place. Everyone wants the spot that he's got, and he certainly thinks he'll have the most fun. Thomas Ditch, former professional mountain bike rider, French and European champion, and now a few weekends a year on the sporting events, providing the live images. This is the GoPro, which actually goes on top of the helmet. You try and look at everything that you want to film, and you have to keep an eye on the road as well. Says going to try and be as static as possible, keep the head as level and as straight as possible. Says I think you really need to feel at one with your bike, and in fact that's the only way that you can get the best images. Says we're going to take what we call an all mountain bike, which means it has a lot of suspension, have a telescopic seat as well. On the descents we're going to lower down the shaft and have a much lower centre of gravity, and then on the uphills just got to keep pedaling as hard as you can, and they'll raise the seat up again just to allow the legs to work in the maximum range. He says we're the eye of the TV, so it's up to us to not only get the pictures but convey the emotions and try and get some of the looks on the faces of the athletes, tell the story. They said in the end that's why they use experienced professionals, racers, runners, great athletes, and that is certainly the case. And so far, they've done a good job.
And we see here Joyce exposed now, coming to the peak of our race. That is just over 7 miles, but she'll be hitting a peak of 3,365 meters. So you can see we've got around 100 meters left of climbing before she then takes over at the top, and the descent, the very long descent of around 16 kilometers still to go in our race. But if you think the finish time is around the 2:20 mark, we're now approximately halfway through our race. And I mean, she's looking comfortable. She's looking like she's happy to switch in and out of that run and the jog. Looking quite far. Do you see the angle of that turn? Clearly, they can't be that far behind her, but she's looking back at a slight angle.
Yeah. I'm not convinced by the comfortable statement. You know, I've seen her run so smooth. I think the next 500 meters is going to be so telling, David, because the gradient eases off, and we saw in the vertical K that those that were feeling good could really stretch the legs between here and the summit. And if Injuru can't do that, I think we're going to find she struggles a little on the early stages of the downhill.
And you can see the terrain underfoot. There are a few rocks. There's a little bit of sandiness, but it becomes far sandier as you hit the peak and go over the top, and it's very, very draining. One of the challenges is you almost feel like you should be running at this stage of the race. And as you said in the VK, they knew the finish was coming, and so they started to put their sprint finishes in. But here, you're feeling like this is the point you should be striding out. The climbing's almost over. It's not quite as steep, but because of the altitude and because of that softness underfoot, it's actually very hard to run in the way you think you should be. So a little bit of experience does help just reset your mind that it's fine to be relaxing a bit and not running too fast.
Yeah, now it may well be my pictures, but I just get a sense that she's got a problem with the hip flexors on the left-hand side. There's a slight asymmetry to the technique. Not easy to see from behind, but we'll find out sure enough. There you can see the summit in the distance, so she's got a way to go, but the bulk of the steep climbing is done, and Injuru has got herself the lead. We're still waiting to see the other athletes appear over the crest, and she showed what she can do on the downhills last weekend in Headlands, David. How much of a lead does she need over the likes of Florea if she's going to make it 2 wins out of 2?
Well, I mean, if it was Headlands, she on the third climb, she pulled about 15 seconds out of Madalena, and she then extended another 15 seconds on the downhill. So I wouldn't say that Eva has a massive advantage coming into this race, but Madalena has the confidence from last year, but also has the doubts of having made a mistake. And so the longer they go in with a gap between them like this, Madalena, for me, doesn't have the aggression and the confidence to risk everything on a finish. She's made mistakes in the past where nutrition has been a struggle for her. And at the press conference, it seemed as if she'd almost rather take a second than risk blowing up, going for the win and ending up in a 5th. But hopefully she'll see that Joyce is still within distance. And we did see last year Madalena really take off over the top and start to fly. And if she can fly like she did last year, then she will be gaining, particularly on this first third, on Joyce.
Yeah, nice to get a few spectators. They've not really seen anyone except the cameraman for the last 40 minutes. Not a massive number of fans up the top of the summit. Most of them waiting down in the bottom to see the outcome of the race. But the banner is the important thing. That's the high point of the course. And some would say the hard work is done, but the downhill, so much skill required, so much strength in the legs to be able to maintain the speed. We're going to find out whether Enduro has got the pacing right on this occasion. She's going to be first to the top of Mammoth Mountain, and that is phase one complete for the woman who leads the Golden Trail standings. 2 wins already this season. Can she make it 3 and head to the grand final with a maximum of 600 points? It's looking that way at the moment.
And you can see here from Madalena that view across. She'll be seeing where Joyce is, and this is quite a large lead for what we're expecting now. So Madalena knows that she is going to absolutely have to turn on the burners to try and reel Joyce in. But the time they're coming over, we didn't have the race splits from last year, but unofficially from Strava, as they came through last year, was around 1:21 over our peak. So even with a slightly adjusted course, it does seem that our women are racing incredibly quickly today.
Yeah, what have you got that? An hour 15 to the summit. In fact, well under an hour 15 for the race leader in Giro. Fleury is going to be just outside that mark.
And we saw Danny Marino there feeding the information to Madalena. Danny came second last year, was leading out. Sadly, has fractured her foot, and Sue is in a cast, but Madalena now knows the splits, and you can see just how hard it is. This climbing in the altitude, she's really struggling with her breathing there, but feeding off the energy that the few cheers as she goes are giving her. And we can see that tape on her back as well.
Yeah, a couple of anxious looks over the shoulder. We saw Enduro doing the same. Always nice to get some sort of indication of where the opposition are. But, you know, we've always associated with a look back as weakness, a sign that you're starting to tire and you're concerned about the people behind you rather than the athletes in front of you.
And we've got a split at the top. You can see them coming through the timing mats. Wow, it's a 2-minute lead for Joyce already. 2-minute lead over Madalena. That is a substantial gap, but you can already see the change as she comes over the top. She's starting to stride out. She'll know exactly how fast she needs to run down. She's had the splits, and here is the energy from the crowd.
Tell you what, if you had that music all the way up the climb, I think there'd be another 3 minutes quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. It just seems to appear from nowhere. It shows you just how deceptive these gaps can be if you're hidden from the audio, and the mountain is shielding you from that. But we have Madalena in second. We're expecting to get a update on the third place as well, and in fact it is confirmation. Rachel is sat in third, the American runner. We mentioned her already. A surprise athlete to be up at this stage, but the fact that Rachel Drake is in third already, fantastic performance from her.
I must say, Rachel Drake looks to be moving very well at this stage. It's going to be another couple of minutes gap between herself and Fleury in second place. And then hopefully we'll get you the gap back to fourth.
And we know that Rachel is a very good ultra runner. She won the Black Canyon 100K this year. She came 8th in Western States. So while we don't know as much about her downhill speed, she will know how to get her nutrition right. She'll know how to pace to this finish line. And clearly altitude isn't a factor for her. She'll have a lot of support on the course as well. She'll be getting updates from all of the local fans and their athlete families. So I'd expect her to have a very good second half to the race as well. And we will be getting the splits on the time between her and Madalena shortly, as they've just come through our peak.
Legs looking a little bit heavy as she comes over the summit. Floria was straight into her stride on the downhill, absolutely flying in pursuit of Enduro. But Rachel Drake in third at the moment, and she's got roughly a minute's advantage over fourth place. We'll get you the exact figures as soon as we get those athletes through the summit. But Rachel Drake, just a little bit of deceleration. I think Floria was quicker on those first 500 metres of descent.
And we've got Lauren Gregory coming through for fourth. And you just the difference in body language with the climbing to the descent, as you say. But Madalena, clearly, we can see from the way they're responding, Madalena clearly has come over that peak intent on attacking. But we're now with the front of our men's. This is Patrick Kipingino leading out with El Hussein on his shoulder.
Well, it looks like we could have another tight finish. Sierra Zinal was nail-biting. Headlands last weekend was sensational. What a fast finish that was. And Elisine involved last weekend. He came out on top. And I think Kipingino will be a little bit worried about the Moroccan star because Elisine absolutely knows how to nail the finish. And he will have had a good look at the last few hundred metres of this course.
And looking back, we couldn't see Philemon in the mirror. The tail mirror, and so clearly they've put a big gap between second and third. Between these two, though, Elisine is a substantially faster downhill runner, but he doesn't like to lead. So the question will be, is he actually going to attack over the peak, or is he happy to sit back until closer to the end?
Well, the second section of the downhill, David, has the bullet downhill as it's known. That's a new part of the course, and it was put in to be a little bit more technical, a little bit steeper. And I wonder whether that is where Elisine will sort of decide that is the point to go and try and break away from the Kenyan.
Yes, he's a very good technical runner. And, I mean, Patrick, we say he's not as good as El Hussein. He's still a very, very fast runner. And you can see already he's striding out there. But El Hussein, to a certain extent, he knows he's in control of this race now. And so it'll be a choice for him whether he wants to attack hard and have a hard race trying to lead all the way down, or if he gets the race splits and knows that Philemon isn't close behind, it might be he's content to sit in second and just get a free ride closer to the finish line.
Remy Bonnet over the summit. Yep. We're expecting to see him up with the leaders, but maybe paying the price for entering the vertical K 2 days ago. He does not look the same man coming over the high point. And Bonnet's chances of getting a much needed win in the Golden Trail World Series, I think, probably out of the window already.
Yeah, absolutely. Last year he came through that peak unofficially from his Strava data in 1 minute mark. So he's clearly not at the level he was performing last year. He came over in 1:03, but even our race leader, Patrick Kipingino, came through the checkpoint in 1:01.50. So, you know, Remy, He's had a tough season. There were question marks about whether everyone has raised their game, but based on last year's performance, Remy just isn't quite the athlete of last season.
Well, no sign of Enduro for a while. We hope she's still out in front, and she hasn't struggled. There are so many trails here. If you're thinking, how on earth do you get lost? There are so many trails. It's like a spider's web of single track trails all the way down the mountainside, both sides. Part of it for skiing. There's a lot of mountain biking done here as well, and obviously quite a few running events held in this area. So that is why they have to focus so hard on following those wispy little tails, pink and orange flags that are flying. Elisine tucked in behind Kipangelo, but not for long. Not for long.
Wow, the gap within meters. The flying camel has put the foot down on the acceleration. He looked back to see if Philemon was there. I think he realized it was a battle between two and is like, right, let's get this done now. What is Patrick going to do? I mean, the turn of pace was sensational.
Remy Bonnet slightly more controlled as he starts his long descent back down to Mammoth Lakes and the plaza where the race will finish.
And it looks like again. Patrick has responded. Yeah, but I mean, Elisine was just flushing his arms out in a very strange angle. So maybe there's an issue, because it looked as if he was trying to get circulation back in his arms. But given that turn of pace, something has gone wrong, because there's no way Patrick would have picked up his pace to match. So very puzzling scenes right now.
Well, I'm just wondering whether Elisine was just trying to say, come on, we've got to go a little bit faster than this, and try to encourage Patrick just to put the foot down a little bit more. But as you say, that change of pace, it was like the start of the 100 meters at the Olympics, from 0 to whatever speed they go at, 30k an hour.
We saw in Remy said after Mont Blanc Marathon, where they were kind of together the whole way until the final descent. He said he just didn't understand what Elisine was doing. He kept on overtaking and slowing down, and then Remy thought that Elisine was tired and actually couldn't attack. So Remy would then attack and Elisine would go with him. So whether this is a new tactic of Elisine to actually try and toy with his opposition to see how they respond, to see what their speed is like. Because now he looks like he's flowing again. He looks like, unless the drone is slightly delayed on the footage we saw from the bike. But, yeah, very, very puzzling scenes.
It's a sort of Kenyan tactic, isn't it, to keep changing the pace? We've seen that over the years in the 10,000 meter races and surging. They're really just playing with the opposition, and it's a sort of mind games thing. And from Morocco, maybe Alazoui is doing exactly the same thing as we work our way down the single track. Plenty of bushes in the way. This is Rachel Drake, who's having a sensational day out there. Took a little bit of time to get into her running on the downhill, but now looks to be moving well.
Yeah, she's flowing fantastically through these trees, and she'll be feeling great right now. I didn't even ask her what her expectations were when we were talking with her yesterday, because she wasn't that clear herself of what performance she could deliver today. As we said, she's not able to dedicate the number of hours that she'd wanted to. She's been a runner for years. She came through the track system that we see a lot of our athletes go through, and specialised in ultra now. So what a performance to see her up in third today. But again, Elisine sat back, happy for Patrick to dictate the pace.
Yeah, happy for Patrick to navigate and follow the trails. Maybe, yeah, but when you do a lot of downhill, your biceps actually get very, very tired holding the arms in the same position. So it's not a bad idea to stretch out the arms and get a new fresh blood flow through the muscular system in the shoulders and the biceps, triceps. Just makes you feel a little bit better, but all sorts of changes in pace. The up and over is going to be interesting, David.
Yeah, absolutely. And he does know, as we said before, there was the technical section where he will have an advantage. But he doesn't look as relaxed as he previously has done when he's raced. He's such a flowing runner. And the fact he's quite often having to shake his arms out, he's putting his arms straight, to me suggests that he's not feeling quite as comfortable. But you can see here how twisty and turny it is, and how much you need to be concentrating on this course to ensure that you are actually going the right way. But for me, if I was Patrick, I'd be very confused, but not only confused, nervous about just how fast he overtook me, suggesting that there is more in the tank hidden from view.
All these runners will be glad to see the end of the uphill section.
We've had a few additional race splits. We've had some other race splits at the peak. A few changes in the field. We knew Remy came through. Remy was around 40 seconds back on El Hussein at the peak. Philemon, another 40 seconds back. So if Philemon wants to catch Patrick and El Hussein, he has around a 1 minute 30 gap. And Garrett Cochran still in 5th place, coming over the top, followed by Daniel Pattis from Italy, Jonas Soldini, Cesare Maestri, Remy Leroux, and Sam Hendry finishing off our top 10 there.
Joyce Njuru, the leader of the women's race, and looks a lot happier now than she was at the top of the climb. Very, very smooth running, looks relaxed, and I dare say she's got some information on the opposition behind her. Floria was 2 minutes behind going over the summit, and if Njuru can keep that to a minute 30 plus, then she should be comfortable to record her 3rd win of the season.
And that was Mikel just on camera there. And we're back with Madeleine Floria. She, at the peak, had a 2.5 minute lead over Rachel Drake. So it's looking like our 1st, 2nd and 3rd places fairly starting to cement as they come down. She's looking fairly relaxed at this stage. Doesn't seem like she's pushing the pace quite as much as I'd expect. And it is the steeper descent off the top. And as they get further down the mountain, it does tend to shallow a little bit. So that's where she can really attack and deploy her 1:11 half marathon pace.
Coming up towards
We've had a few splits from the top. We've had a few splits from the top of our ladies race as well. So as we've confirmed, Joyce in 1st, Floria in 2nd, Rachel in 3rd. Anna Gibson was in 4th, Lauren Gregory in 5th, Tabor Hemming in 6th, MK Sullivan 7th, Aurea Liachi 8th, Rachel Tomash 9th, and Sydney Peterson now in the top 10. And we're back again with the men's. Patrick leading out on El Hussein. And Patrick was looking great to me, looking very, very relaxed. So with the way El Hussein's running, maybe there are some question marks on whether actually he is managing himself as successfully on this course as Patrick.
Two leaders in the women's race. Quite difficult to gauge the gap exactly. the critical point will come if Floria can get sight of the Kenyan athlete. Then that will give her a massive, massive boost. But there are so many twists and turns, David. And once they're down into the trees, you've got to be within, 15, 20 seconds of the athlete in front to know exactly where they are. Well, it's down to 43 seconds, so that's pretty impressive from 2 minutes.
Wow, that is a massive change. And you did say earlier that you didn't think that Joyce was looking quite as comfortable. I mean, at the moment, this suggests that Madalena is closing in on her at a pace that she will overtake within the next 15 minutes or so. So at the moment, it's looking like this is going to be all the way to the wire. Madalena, the stronger downhill runner. And as you say, if she can start to see her, and as they traverse across one of the ski slopes fairly soon, it is very open, and she'll get the split between them, which will give her extra energy to increase that pace.
The two leaders in the men's race, and Kipinginu just 20 meters, not minutes, 20 meters ahead of the Moroccan Elassine El-Azawi.
It looks like they're sprinting. Seeing it from above, how is this a 26K race when they're running at that pace? But Elassine's a little bit further off than he normally likes to be. I'd expect him to be this far back if it was technical terrain, so he can actually see where they're running. But I think Patrick's trying to push the pace here. I think he's smelt weakness and is actually trying to test El-Hassine.
Yeah, very, very interesting developments. I wonder whether Patrick Kipingeno is also a bit concerned about the steep section, which is the middle section of the downhill phase, whether he's worried that he might lose time there. We've seen him overtaken by a number of athletes on the really steep sections. And as you said, El-Azawi is one incredible downhill runner. So maybe the Kenyan wants to build a gap before then. And he certainly, having seen El-Hassine in Headlands last weekend, he does not want to be level with him going into the last 500 metres.
Oh, absolutely not. And you can, in the women's race, you can see how open this ski slope is. They're going to be turning quite soon into the technical terrain, but this will allow Madalena to see Joyce. And for me right now, Joyce looks like she's cruising. It doesn't look like she's attacking these downhills. She is running without the kind of aggression that I think we're seeing from Madalena, and that must be what's allowing her to catch up. Significantly, she's not looked back though, which is good. I don't think she senses how close Madalena is to her, and we've just got to hope for her that she's been holding something back, because Madalena is closing very quickly right now.
Yeah, we've been spoilt for good finishes this year on the Golden Trail World Series. Mont Blanc was absolutely sensational. We've spoken about Sierra Zinal. We've spoken about Headlands last weekend. Are we going to get a similar situation? This is McCoy Aid Station. And the next section between here and the garage, as it's known, is the section that holds the new bit of the downhill, the bullet downhill. And that is going to be very interesting indeed. David, you say it's not that technical, but it really does require 100% focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for someone like El-Hassine, it won't be technical, but actually for everyone else, they will have to very much concentrate, mind their foothold, but it's breaking up the rhythm. And if you're tired, that can also be quite destructive on your mentality. They're going to have to scramble a bit, but she'll know then where Madalena is. She'll be hearing the cheers behind her. And so Joyce is going to have to push on this downhill technical section. I'd say Joyce has got a slight advantage over Madalena, but it's only around 800 meters. So I can't see there being a significant change in the race because of it. Whereas when it comes to Patrick and El-Hassine, that is the moment that El-Hassine may be waiting for to make his attack.
An hour 40 on the clock just about for the women's race, and if last year's anything to go by, the winning time will be just under the 2 hour 20. I think it could be closer to 2 hours 15, to be honest, judging by the speed that they went through the high point on the Mammoth Mountain. And it's going to be very interesting. Rachel Drake still hanging on to third place as she goes up and over the only significant bit of climbing on the way from the summit to the finish.
And you can see there was a runner ahead of it. I think it looks like Rachel could see someone, but given that we are now seeing Madalena here coming into the aid station of McCoy, there seems to be a bit more of a gap than we were expecting between Joyce and Madalena. It was 45 seconds, and she's just come through that chit timer now. So we should be getting an exact distance between them shortly. But for me, that seems like quite a bit more than 45 seconds. So Joyce must have pulled something back. But Anna Gibson on our left-hand screen in the pink there, closing in on Rachel Drake, it seems. So the battle for third is extremely close.
That section nicely signposted. No way they could make a mistake there.
And in fact, I've just got confirmation through of the chip timer at McCoy. It's back to 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 10 seconds, the difference between Joyce Najiru, our leader on screen from Kenya, and the Romanian Madalena Florea. It seems, looking at the camera and where they've been, that potentially there's more of a battle now then, but for second, third and fourth together. But I'd estimate that our third place run, in fact they're absolutely tied together.
Is that Remy Bonnet on just going through? I think it was just ahead of these two runners. So Florea is in between those two and our race leader. Now, this is the battle in the men's race, and Kipcheno's got himself 20-30 metres clear. David, you suggested that Elazine might be struggling a little. Well, he's taken the shortcut. That's at least 2 seconds pulled back with no extra effort.
I mean, we talk about concentration. How pink do those cones need to be for you to spot where you're going? But, I mean, Patrick had pulled a bit of a lead there ahead of Elazine. And so, yeah, I would have thought Elazine would have used these opportunities to at least be on Patrick's shoulder. But he does know he has the technical downhill coming. And we've seen there on the left the overtake happen.
Yeah, Anna Gibson going up into third place, and that's a significant move, and she'll be hoping to see the black vest of Florea somewhere up front. But have you got any splits on the top three and the women's going through McCoy's?
I mean, look how comfortable Rachel Drake looks just going on the uphill. As soon as the terrain changed, she overtook her. Clearly an incredible climber. We are yet to get the split of our third and fourth place ladies and how far back they are, and Joyce. We have had the split of Elazine and Patrick. They've come through in 1:21, and this is Philemon Kiriago now, our third place male, surprisingly. So he has made an overtake on Remy Bonnet, if what the camera is telling us. He is now in the hunt, and we've seen in Sierra Zanao how fast he can be on the downhill. He's been relaxing and clearly hasn't pushed himself too much up this huge climb. So he is now in the hunt for our front two.
Yeah, he said at the start of the race that he was after a podium finish, Kiriago. He's in that position at the moment, but he desperately wants another win. He got one in Sierra Zinal last year, but he's had 2 seconds and a fourth so far this season. In terms of winning the overall, he really does need to win today, but that's going to be an outside chance. I think he's relying on the two leaders, both making a navigation error lower down the course. Rachel Drake back into third. There's the race leader.
And the fact that our third and fourth place runners are together, this is actually quite a good advantage for them if they're hoping to close in on Madalena. We've seen the way they've switched between them, and that allows them both to work with each other, not carry too much of the mental load of leading. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they're quite happy to sit together for a little bit and just eat up those yards trying to close in on Madalena Florea, currently in second place. We do have an update from the field. Unfortunately, it's looking like Alan Santamaria has dropped out of the race. Alan Santamaria, the Spanish runner, which is very sad to see. But back with the front of our men's race. Look at the way they're flowing through these trails. Patrick Kipangino still ahead of Remy Bonnet, and we can see this section. If you remember the footage of last year, that is the jump that Philemon made where the trail collapsed beneath his feet. So the two of them still locked in battle, and Patrick showing the form he wasn't showing last weekend. He's clearly not as tired as we expected. And maybe he decided, actually, this was the race that suited him more and was holding back last weekend, because at no point was he leading and no point did he suggest he had any kind of downhill pace that he's matching with today.
Yeah, he's absolutely flying at the moment, well over the 20 kilometres an hour mark. And I was also wondering whether he decided not to push too hard before they got to Twin Lakes, because we were both concerned about his progress. A gap of, 40, 50 metres opening up between himself and the Moroccan and Kiriago as well. But he has come back in style. But every time you think he's got away, El Hassin somehow closes the gap down.
Yeah, he just seems to be so confident that El Hassin doesn't seem to mind if you pull a few meters here or there. He's quite happy to change his pace. He's quite happy to leave you confused with his strategy. And we're now with Remy Bonnet in fourth place. We do have some race splits over the top coming through McCoy. This is the 11-mile mark, so approximately 17K into the race. It looks like Madalena and Joyce have both pulled away from third and fourth place, significantly more than we thought. Joyce came through in 1:37, Madalena 1:39.30. Rachel Drake and Anna Gibson were locked together in 1:44, so a 4.5 minute lead there. And behind them, Lauren Gregory in fifth place, only a minute down on Anna Gibson and Rachel Drake. So third, fourth and fifth places in our women. Still a very close battle, but it does look like our first two ladies have pulled away from third quite significantly.
And our first two men, I think El Hassin in second place here is playing a clever game, because every corner, David, every single corner, he is taking a slightly shorter route. And that is because Kipangino is showing him exactly where to go. So he hasn't got to think about navigation. He's just got to follow and then make a decision to just shorten the corner. It's got to be a smart move. But whether the Kenyan can run the legs off the Moroccan before they come down into that slightly easier final section that leads them back to Mammoth Lakes, we will see in the next half hour or so.
And what can he do? This is so frustrating if you're the other runner. He's done it to Patrick, he's done it to Philemon, he's done it to Remy. And as you say, he sits back, and there you go again. Classic demonstration 1 meter, 2 meters. He keeps on eating up at every turn. And I asked him at the press conference, if the other runner stopped to force you to overtake and lead, what would you do? And he paused. He paused in answering because he wasn't sure. He hadn't even thought. But we can see now Patrick's trying to pull away.
So Kipinjano's still leading. Alizoe is in second place. What a race. What a race is developing here. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. The conditions are perfect as well. I know a few people were concerned at the start of the week. Very, very wet. The wet weather has created a few ruts on some of the steeper downhills, but so far no evidence that it's any more technical than it was last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it clearly hasn't slowed them down much. They've come through McCoy. They're now in the mountain biking section, as you can see from the way the corners run. There are a few elements, a few sections where there's some steep descents that you need to be confident in attacking the downhill. But Patrick right now, he's just got to hope that El Hassin's got something wrong. But, we can see in our ladies now, Anna Gibson has made a bit of a gap over Rachel Drake. Anna Gibson starting to pull away third and fourth in our women's race. And the fact that the cyclist has overtaken, to me, suggests they are reading this race and they have decided that Anna Gibson now has made a substantial break and they need to move behind her rather than trying to film both of our runners.
Yeah, the cameramen are obliged not to interfere in any way, that's obvious, but they're not allowed to get in between a group of runners. If they particularly want a shot of one runner, they have to stay at the front of the group or the back of the group. It makes it tough. And here they are getting some great shots of Anna Gibson from the front and the back. Joyce and Giroux still flowing, looking happier now. We'll be starting to think about the finish. That's 1 hour 50. They've been on the trails already so far today. And as we've said, we're expecting a winning time of around 2:15. So not too bad. 25 minutes to go.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is Joyce doesn't even have a proper spot. And we can see the men's race now catching up the second place of Madeline Fleury. Look at the speed difference. That is partly the difference in when you're attacking each other in a race versus knowing that you have a cushion ahead and a cushion behind. But the crazy thing is Joyce doesn't have a proper sponsor, a proper backer. And is currently leading our series. So hopefully this exposure will help her get the support to be able to come to races like this around the world.
Go, go. Come on, come on.
Well, there's no doubt that for a couple of 100 metres, Fleury tried to go with the pace of the two top men. She will have paid a price for that, but she will have learnt a lot as well, and certainly gained a little bit on Enduro. Enduro, I think, is going to be given the same treatment in not too short a time as the two leading men really pushed the pace. This is the steeper section, the bullet downhill. That's where they thought some of the runners may come unstuck. Anna Gibson.
And you can see the mountain bike back with Anna Gibson now in third place. And Anna's season is so different to a lot of our athletes. She's a dual track and trail running athlete. So she's been training for 1,500 meters up until around 2 months ago. This year she set a 4:08 time in the 1,500. Fantastic performance from her. And then she suddenly has to switch. First race back, Sierra Zanal in our season, going from 1,500 meters to 30K. 25 times or so the distance. Got my maths right there. 20 times the distance suddenly. But she clearly... But El Hassin has made a move. El Hassin is ahead on this technical terrain. We can see he's used that opportunity to just pull away.
Yeah, he's picked his moment, and we suggested this might be where he tries to make his break, and there's a very distinct change in the body language of Patrick Kipangeno to see the Moroccan out in front. That will be destroy him mentally, but he's got to try and get back in touch. 5 or 6 meters would do it. At the moment, he's some 45 meters down on the Moroccan.
Wow, they just seem like they're in two different races now. The speed of Al Hussein, and they're going down this bike jump. I mean, within a minute, he's created a nice, comfortable cushion. And I suspect Al Hussein has been thinking about this the whole time and has been holding back his pace somewhat. It wouldn't surprise me if they are now on different paces from this moment in. Not just that Al Hussein has made his attack, but as soon as Patrick thinks this race is over, he knows Al Hussein is a faster descender. If he stops believing that he can catch him, he'll settle into a slower pace. But wow, what a decisive move. At just the point we thought he would attack, he did, and it's proving to be the difference right now.
They're up to the 21-kilometre mark, and to be honest, David, with 5k to go, it does get a little bit easier from here, and I think that Al Hussein thought that was his only opportunity, his only guaranteed opportunity to get away from the Kenyan, and he now has to capitalise on that. It's all or bust as far as the Moroccan is concerned.
And we looked at the race splits from the headlands last week. The last 5k they ran in sub 3-minute kilometres. That just an insane pace. I think it was a 14:47 5k was the final downhill into headland. So it shows you just how fast these athletes are capable of running, even at the end of 21k of running. But Anna is yet to see that technical terrain. And for me, Rachel would be a better technical runner, having the experience. So might give her the opportunity to try and bridge the gap back to Anna.
Yeah, Anna Gibson's stride length certainly seems to have shortened over the last couple of minutes. Who have we got here? Is this Remy Bonnet? I thought for a second. Sorry, no, but the hair's a little bit too long for that.
I think that might have been Lauren Gregory, potentially.
I think it was.
We know that Rachel
I think it
Drake
was.
And Lauren. So potentially Lauren has also caught Rachel. She was around a minute down at the McCoy checkpoint. And Lauren we know to be a very good downhill runner. And also a slight more favourable amount of endurance in her training. She does far more miles in her training.
Al Hussein still visible, or is that Patrick up front? Is that just trying to pick this out?
Definitely still Patrick on screen now with Al Hussein ahead. But yeah, as you say, Al Hussein's not created more of a gap, which I thought he would do. I mean, we saw in headlands this was the difference between them for some time, but whether he's sat to sit with this, but if I was Patrick right now, I'd be feeling confident. I'd be gaining strength from the fact that lead is not growing.
Maybe it is not over quite yet. Still clocking 18.9. They've got under 5 kilometers to go to the finish. The men started at what are they on now? They're on an hour 37, an hour 38. So it's going to be around that 2-hour mark again. Maybe quicker this time.
And look, Patrick is closing. Patrick is actually closing on Al Hussein. They've just come through the garage checkpoint, which leaves them with less than 5k to go. And we didn't expect to see this. The whole race has gone to form in some regards, but we did see early on that Al Hussein was looking slightly out of sorts, and it's a complete surprise to see him lose a lead that he clearly had intended on attacking to create, and just giving up a lead so quickly and easily, to me suggests something is wrong. And if you're Patrick right now, you've got to be gaining confidence from that move.
You know, David, you know exactly what's wrong. He was in first place and he doesn't like being there. He doesn't know how to pace himself, so he's back behind, and many people would have dropped straight back, but not Elisine. He's on the heels of Patrick Kipincheno, and it starts all over again. By my reckoning, we're down to 3.55 kilometers to go, 3.5K to go. What a series.
And this finish can be...
Yeah.
This finish can be quite confusing because you can see the houses coming into view. It feels like the end is coming a lot quicker than it is. But if we're thinking about these two coming into a sprint finish, we've never seen Patrick involved in a sprint finish before. I suspect Elisine is faster, but we don't know this to be the case. They come in into the town, over a bridge, down some steps and across some tarmac. So it's actually quite hard to plan an attack sprint finish, and there they are overtaking Joyce, our race leader. She'll be surprised to see these two together. But as you say, Elisine clearly not content to lead, and they'll both be now thinking, what do I do from here to guarantee the race finish? Because to guarantee the race win.
Elisine goes again now.
But he's overtaking again.
Yeah, Kipincheno didn't get involved in the sprint finish in the race last week. He was in third, but he wasn't involved for the line. These two, 1 minute in front, one behind. This is absolutely fascinating, and I think we are going to have another 2-second gap between the two leaders. Absolutely astonishing. After 20, what have we done? 23.5K. It's going to come to the line unless one of them has an incident on this final downhill stage. It is absolutely brilliant racing, and the Golden Trail World Series has produced yet another stunning race. So interesting with, you look at Mont Blanc, which is a far longer race with more uphills, more downhills, and still they can't separate the top athletes.
I mean, they are going sub 3-minute kilometers. It's astounding pace given the amount of climbing they've been doing. But we saw this speed in headlands, but don't forget, this is at altitude. They're not taking on as much oxygen as they did last week. These two runners haven't been in a dome tent for the last 4 weeks. They haven't been adapting months in advance. And so to be running at this pace just shows how fast and how much talent they've got, given they're fighting a lack of oxygen as well. We have had the race splits come.
Yeah, you give us the race splits, David.
Puzzlingly, it seems as if we have SALOMON, his chip timer must not be working, but incredibly, we've got in 6th place Garrett Cochran from America is still holding up in there. And actually, I'm going to ignore all this data. It's giving me very, very strange information. So it's got Remy Bonnet in first. So we're going to ignore any of the data until I'm more confident.
Unless Remy has taken a shortcut on the way down the hill, that's unlikely. 2.3 kilometers left to run. We're looking at around 6.5 minutes. They might even be sub 6 minutes if they keep this sort of pace going as they come down towards the finish in Mammoth Lakes. It's going to be another thriller, no doubt about it. Who has got the strength of mind? And Alazoui, of course, has got his 2 wins. Both these athletes have 2 wins so far this year, so one of them is going to head to the grand final in Switzerland with a maximum of 600 points to their name, and that will put them in a decent position for, of course, the overall tour win.
I mean, that's the exciting point of this race, is Patrick has 2 wins and a 3rd. Elisine has 2 wins and a 2nd, and so Whoever wins this today gets maximum points and takes the lead overall in our series, which is incredible at this stage for the final race to be determining who has the advantage. And we're also with Madalena Florea. She was 2 minutes down in the last checkpoint on our race leader, Joyce Njiru. Had around a 4 to 5 minute lead over third place. She'll know those splits, and so is probably quite content at this stage to be almost just cruising in to her to second place. I can't see anything going wrong unless, as we say, they take a wrong turn. But again, Elisine leading an attack again. Is he actually testing him?
There's Kiriakou. Elisine, if he finishes second, he won't boost his score at all. So all this work for nothing in terms of the points. He'll stay on 588, and Kipengino will go on to 600. So there will only be 12 points between them. If Elisine Lazoui wins, then he moves on to 600, and Kipengino will get another 12 points, so he'll move on to 588. So they will be, whatever happens, they're going to be 12 points apart going into the grand final. It's going to be some climax to the season.
And our third and fourth place female runners back together again. You know, Rachel Drake showed she was climbing better. We did wonder whether she'd be able to get a bit of a lead down the more technical terrain. And locked in battle here. We've also seen Lauren Gregory is incredibly close as well, within a minute. So in the women's race, the story is who is going to get that podium. 3 of them in the hunt right now, all American runners, all knowing this kind of terrain quite well.
Lazoui not letting the gap open at all. He's again cutting those corners, optimizing his route choice, which is absolutely the way to run. If there's a corner, he will be on the inside of it. And every time he does that, he gains a metre and a half. It's so valuable. You add up all the corners on this course, and it comes to a significant distance.
And I don't even know if Patrick realises he's doing that. He just seems to be quite happy at the front. We've seen in previous years, you know, Elisine has shown this kind of performance and this level, but this is the first year he's actually been able to come to America and race. He's had issues with his visa. So the fact he's come here and had one win and a first or a second, it shows just what an advantage it is to be able to travel to all of our races. And he'll go into this final feeling very confident of being able to deliver and perform in the race we've got in Switzerland. It suits him to the ground, a mix of technical, a change in up and downs, and we saw how devastating he is with that kind of course in the final last year.
This is third and fourth place in the women's race. Drake and Gibson. Drake in front at the moment, but they have been sharing the lead, just as David suggested they might do. I think that has benefited both of them, certainly on the way down from the top of Mammoth Mountain. And just as I said, Gibson takes a turn in front. That could be another sprint finish to the line. Njiru is leading the race some way ahead now. Actually, that's a significant gap that Gibson has opened up, so a positive move from her. Nothing between the two leading men at the moment. It's going all the way to the wire.
And we know that Anna Gibson has incredible track pace. She'll be fancying her chances the closer they get to that finish. Just confirming, Lauren Gregory was around 90 seconds back on Anna Gibson at the last checkpoint. In the men's, we're not quite sure where. For Philemon is in third, it wasn't picked up in our chip, but Remy Bonnet in fourth, and in fifth place at the moment, Garrett Cochran. An incredible performance by the American runner. Daniel Pattis in sixth, and behind him, Remy Leroux. We expect to be coming in fairly soon. We're just waiting on confirmation for that. But right now, if you're Patrick,
Less than 750 metres to go, David, and the battle commences. Alazoui goes in front for one last time, he hopes, but will Kipingino be able to respond? They're still running sub 3-minute kilometres as they come down to the finish. I think we're going to be up to around 22, 23 kilometres an hour as they come into the village itself. They know this part of the course like the back of the hand, no mistakes from here on in, and this is when we find out what Kipingino can do when it comes to the last 200 metres.
We saw in last week, as it came to the final turn, timing the sprint finish was essential. On there, look, he's used that downhill to try and stride out a little bit more. It looks like Patrick has responded, but it's going to be essential that they know when to start sprinting, because there are some tight some turns, and if you go into those turns with too much speed, it will force you to brake and slow down. But this is the bridge we're talking about. There are steps through the town and a slight turn into the finish line. 200 meters to go.
Alazoui, the quickest over the steps, and he's bought himself 500 metres. Kipingino is digging deep now. There's no need for navigation. And he's gone to the right. He's been squeezed out. He's been squeezed out on the right. He's going to have to find another way. Does he have the legs? Alazoui's going to take it yet again, I think, as he comes into the last 50. They sprint through Mammoth Lakes for the second week in a row. A spectacular finish in the Golden Trail. And it's the Moroccan who takes the title, but there's no doubt that Kipingino will be a little bit frustrated because he made the break, he picked up the speed, and he was blocked by the Moroccan on the inside. Maybe there'll be a protest, but David, for the second week in succession, an unbelievable finish.
Less than a second, and we talked about timing. For me, Patrick had the speed. He tried to get past on the right and was blocked, and then had to brake and couldn't respond. I mean, it's been 2 seconds difference in the last two races, but this was all on the line, less than a second. And how frustrating for Patrick to have raced so well today. Led on the up and known how Elisine runs this downhill and managed to respond time and time again. Anna Gibson, though, in third place, looking back, clearly wondering where Rachel Drake is. This battle for the podium is not over yet either.
Fleury in second place. Injuru approaching the finish as well to win the women's race.
Team 13, first woman coming into the
Here
bridge.
we go with the leader of the women's, Joyce Injuru, who pushed hard in the early stages, and she's now got less than 200 metres to go as she goes up the steps. Just a little bit of care. There's no pressure on her whatsoever. She can just make sure of her footing as she descends down to the lower level, and she can start celebrating now, because that is going to be 3 wins on the tour, and she'll head to the grand final with a maximum of 600 points. It's been a sensational season.
Yeah, she won in China at altitude. We knew she'd do well today. She won in headlands. I think we're getting some technical issues here. But making it 3 from 3, going into the final with 600, the absolute maximum points, and looking unstoppable right now. The unsponsored athlete all the way from Kenya, it's Joyce Njiru, wins here in Mammoth Lakes. 3 wins so far this season. What a performance from the Kenyan runner.
Absolutely fantastic. And she'll be delighted with that headlands. What was she? She was a decent margin, 40 seconds ahead of Fleury on that occasion. She's done more damage this time round. Kirago coming in to take third in the men. So he's now had 3 podium finishes, 2 times runner-up, once in third. And it will keep him within touch of the 2 leaders in the Tour, but he's going to have the perfect week when he goes down to Switzerland. Remember, a prologue and a race, a longer race worth 300 points. So lots up for grabs when they head to the grand final. But Kiriago really needed that win today. It's not come his way, but he has got third place. And Remy Bonnet, did he pay a price for racing the vertical K? I certainly think that's the case.
I mean, he had to try and attack today, and clearly he's just not got the form of last season. Philemon, looking behind him as he came in, was looking stiff, looked like he actually had to battle to that line. But this is our former series champion. It clearly isn't looking like he's going to be able to defend that title in the final. Just to confirm, in our final, there are the points on offer, 400 points if you manage to win both the prologue and the final itself. So Patrick goes in with 600, so it shows you how many points are on offer. But our second place lady today, Madalena Florea, high-fiving the cameraman there.
Yeah,
I think she'll be content with second.
Yeah, I think she was well beaten today, well beaten on the climb, and that takes her total up. But, well, she's got 3 times runner-up, so she's 36 points adrift going to the grand final. Joyce Njiro is in the driving seat in the women's series, but anything can happen, particularly with the prologue. Does that suit Njiro? Probably better than Florea.
I would say, actually, for the prologue, she was so fast last year, Madalena. It wouldn't surprise me if she goes into this final actually feeling quite confident because of her performances last year. We've talked about the difference of having those 3 shorter climbs, and that will be how our final looks. And so the profile of the final, for me, suits her more than it does Joyce. So this season is certainly not over. And you can see she's having fun with the crowd here, ballerina-ring her way through to second place. Second place in Mammoth Lakes, Romania's Madalena Florea. 31-year-old,
and another athlete that came from the track originally. She was the under-23 world champion. Well, she wasn't the world champion. She was 4th in both the 5K and the 10K back in 2015. So she's got fantastic pedigree, and the national Romanian champion over 10K. Today, she shows she can run the hills yet again. 3 times she's been runner-up this year. Will she get that elusive win when she goes to Switzerland and the grand final? Many hope it goes her way.
And you can see the friendship there amongst the two of them. They've run a lot of trail together, and actually they said they were teammates earlier this week. Following how much time they'd spent running side by side at Headlands, they'd really have a good friendship. Our cyclists now are desperately scrambling back up the hill, trying to find out what's happening in the women's race. It was looking like Arne Gibson had the slight advantage coming in, but we can see now Daniel Pattis and Arne Gibson together. So this is our 5th and 3rd place athletes, we believe. Will we see Rachel Drake? Will we see Garrett Cochran? Or will we see Jonas Saldini also coming into view? A few technical problems there with our cameras. We are hoping to get the end of our women's race, but that looked like it was Jonas Saldini on the screen. So it looks like he is in a battle with Daniel Pattis for our 5th place finish right now.
Yeah, it looks as though Florea took a bit of a tumble on the way down, I assume. She's got a bit of a gash on that right knee of hers. This was the battle for 3rd and 4th in the women's. Arne Gibson has stolen the advantage over Rachel Drake. She's done well. Very interesting how the two of them, Drake brilliant on the uphills and very good on the steep downhills, but Arne Gibson has won on all the slightly flatter sections.
Yeah, I mean, she's really deploying her track speed incredibly well today. She typically trains around 35 miles of road, but she does a lot of cycling to try and ensure that she's got the gas tank to see her to the end of races like this. It looks as if there's a fairly large gap now between the two of them, and that is Jonas Saldini now overtaking Arne Gibson. So he is definitely in the hunt for that 5th or 6th place finish. Daniel Pattis from Italy ahead of him. But it's looking like Arne Gibson is coming through to our finish line shortly. for her third place in the Golden Trail.
Yeah, and of course she was fourth here last year, just pushed off the podium by Madalena Fleury. She was only, what, 30 seconds outside a top three, so this will feel particularly good for Gibson. And what a battle she's had. I've always been a believer that the good races are where you have a battle with another individual. It doesn't matter whether it's for first or second or for fifth or sixth, but if you have a race within a race, everyone feels good at the end of it, and of course it brings the best out of each athlete.
And the fact that she's someone like Rachel Drake, to be able to run alongside someone with her pedigree, they won't know each other incredibly well because they'd have run slightly different circuits. Rachel on the ultra distance, Anna doing more of the Golden Trail and the shorter distances. But, you know, Anna has moved from where she was from, Wyoming. Too much snow in the winter. She moved to California so she could race year-round and get track speed for finishes like this. But we're now looking from above. I believe this is probably Daniel Pattis from Italy, wearing the reddy orange colours of Brooks, and Anna Gibson just behind him, coming in for third place.
Yeah,
she's not looking back, so she clearly is confident.
Yeah, I think she's checked on the progress of Rachel Drake. Anna Gibson, originally, as David says, from the snowy areas, Jackson Hole, known to all skiers. It's one of the meccas for alpine skiing. At 23, she comes home to secure third place, one better than last year. And she had awful injuries in 17 and 19, but she looks very, very good. And this is on the back of a brilliant cross-country season last year. So Anna Gibson takes third and gets the USA on the podium here in Mammoth Lakes. That is very, very important.
And that's going to be a huge performance for her overall placings. She was outside of the top 10, having only finished in Sierras now and in Headlands. So that third place will catapult her into our top 5. And Rachel Drake coming in fourth. What a performance from her. She's not been able to train at the level that a lot of our other athletes have. So to do so well on a short course for her, really impressive, and just shows how much talent and how much grit she has to be able to get round such a fast course.
What a brilliant race. It's El Azoui who takes it for Morocco in the men's, and Joyce Njiro who gets her third win of the season. Wow.
And we saw Cesare Maestri from Italy come through the line there. We will get updates on the rest of our men's finish, because it seems as if we've had 3 or so go through off screen. But, wow, performances, as you say, in the men's and the women's, tight battles all the way to the finish line.
Well, there are still plenty of athletes just coming off the top of Mammoth
Ladies
Mountain.
and gentlemen, we
There's
are
a big spread.
Elisine El Azoui coming representing Team Normal.
Champion
has been
for today.
Hell of a fight, as we anticipated.
His
Last
third
weekend,
win
we were
of the
fighting
season,
with Philemon
his fifth,
in the Headlands,
his
and you
sixth podium
out-sprinted him
on
for
the
the
tour
win.
this year.
This
Here
time,
he is. Let's see what he has
Patrick
to say.
Jimeno, you actually attacked. You changed your strategy. Was that part of the plan all along, or did you just decide to attack before the finish, not to bring it down to a sprint finish?
Oui, je suis vraiment très contente. Je suis très contente. Aujourd'hui, j'ai fait une nouvelle stratégie. J'ai essayé pousser plusieurs fois, mais il y a un rythme difficile. J'ai essayé de pusher, Patrick et me suivre. Je fais plusieurs fois des attaques, mais j'arrive pas. Alors, à la fin, j'ai gagné et je suis très contente. Ça c'est vraiment l'objectif.
Well, my French isn't the best, but he's definitely saying he's a very, very happy man after that race today. And as far as the strategy goes, it was pretty much the same. Follow and benefit from the route finding of the race leader.
So
as we saw, David, he put in a couple of
not planning on
efforts.
attacking and keeping the same strategy, but during the race, he realized on the technical parts that he was able to actually try and pull away. So he tried.
Yeah, he also said that on some of the technical parts, he realized that he was able to get away.
Patrick was coming back. So once again, it came down to a sprint finish, but then he was super happy to manage to hold him off and take the win once again. So this is 3 wins for 3 for Elusine El Azaoui. He comes into the final with the most amount of points, and so he wants to thank all the fans, all the people who support him, believe in him during this season, and he's looking forward to the final. Elusine El Azaoui, one last word about the final and how you will anticipate this race and what will be your goal there.
On se voit à la finale. J'ai beaucoup de gens là-bas qui m'attendent et je veux donner un bon rendez-vous que je vais être là. C'est comme dire, c'est chez moi là-bas.
Yes, so Elusine says, like, I'm very excited about the final, obviously for the fact that it is the last race of the season, but also because this is in Locarno in Switzerland, and this is where Elusine lives. So that's going to be home ground with his home crowd, and this is additional motivation for him to try and do well. Elusine El Azaoui, congratulations again to this champion. Thank you very much.
What a man. What a man. And yeah, great race. Interesting. You know, what did you make of his comments on his tactics?
Yeah, I mean, it shows that he did have a game plan, but clearly he's prepared to adapt that strategy when he needs to. But it just shows how good Patrick is. The fact that Elusine sensed weakness, gave a full attack, but couldn't break Patrick. And we've known Patrick to be a good overall runner, an incredible climber, but he's shown today that at altitude his downhill is equally as good.
Let's have a chat with the winner of the women's race, Joyce Njiru of Kenya. Just as Elusine El Azaoui has done, she's made it 3 wins on the series so far, 200 points for each win, so she has a total of 600. She's in the perfect position going into the grand final in Switzerland.
A little bit of background noise from the fans as someone finishes there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
so we should be getting the questions to Joyce shortly. Here we go.
Joyce Njiru, once again, taking the win here at the Headlands for an incredible race. Can you please tell us, because we know that you race on the feeling, and before the start, you never know how the day is going to go. You measure the fitness and how you feel in the first kilometers, and very quickly we saw you attack. And then you never looked back. So how did you feel today, and how did the elevation and the altitude influence your racing or not?
I think being on a high altitude place, I feel more good and more strong and more motivated. Since I tried this in China, I think I'm more favored by the high altitude. Like, I don't feel not weak, I just feel good and strong. And in the first kilometers, I have to feel my body and to see who is who, and not to just go fast and feel the body is dead, but just to try to keep on the pace fast and warm up the body well and the muscles too, and then to try to push. And yeah, in the beginning, I was like, I had nothing. I didn't know like how I will do it, like where to push, where to keep on the pace. But yeah, when I tried to go fast and they never assisted, then I said, okay, Joyce, it's your turn. Just try to push and just press on the button, and you will be okay. Yeah.
So you felt you were stronger than your competition today on that first big climb on Dragon's Back. Now, as soon as you went over the summit and down, did you feel worried at any point that somebody could come back and potentially Madalena, who was in second place?
I was never worried because before going to the top, I looked back and saw Magdalena. Even if maybe 100 meters behind, this means a lot from the downhill for me. So I was never worried. So when it came to downhill, then I knew this is my race, and just push to the end and try to keep on the pace and try it again.
And you do all this with a smile on your face. You made it look so easy today. Once again, Joyce and Judith, winner of the Mammoth Trail Fest 26 kilometers and the last stage of the Gold Trail World Series. We wish you all the best for the final, and we're looking forward to seeing you again shine in Switzerland.
Thank you so much. And to everybody who believes in me, I'm very grateful and thankful. Thank you.
Well, what a delightful interview with Joyce Injiro. That's nice pictures of her, and as we were reminded, she took the win in the Four Sisters, which was the last race at extreme altitude.
And we're going to see the highlights today of how today's race unfolded. We've already heard from Joyce how comfortable and confident she was on that climb. But before then, you can see the pace that this race went out at. A lot of strong American track runners putting down the pace early on. But it wasn't until this first climb that we really got an insight into how this race was going to unfold. Joyce and Giroux in the short climbs before they even got to Twin Lakes, building a little bit of a lead. Madalena Florea then also comfortably settling into second place. Behind them on this climb, there were a few changes that we could see, particularly behind Lauren Gregory, Anna Gibson, and Tabor Hemming. But actually, it was Rachel, our third place athlete, who was the strongest climber from that group. Joyce Giroux used the climb and the altitude to build a 2-minute lead by the top. Madalena striding over, hoping to try and catch her back, but Joyce just didn't look like she had any weaknesses today. That 2-minute cushion seemed to be the difference between them all the way down the mountain. But behind them, the battle for third became the story of our women's race. Anna Gibson tied in a battle with Lauren Gregory, and it wasn't until coming into the town that Anna had the chance to stride out. Joyce Giroux, though, claiming her third win of the series, going into our final with maximum points. Madalena delighted for her second place of the series, also going through into our final in second place overall. But Anna Gibson, her first podium of this year, coming third in Pikes Peak last year. She now enters our top 10, probably our top 5 of the overall, and is looking like she is the strongest American for our series final in Switzerland next month.
So what a day, and that of course leaves just the grand final to come in Switzerland in Ascona Locarno. It is a beautiful, beautiful venue, so I hope you can join us for that. But well done to Elazui and Njiro, the two winners at Mammoth Mountain.
And we will be seeing the highlights of the men's race shortly as well. But you can see here the athletes delighted with the performance that's happened today. As a recap, the final in Switzerland won't be at altitude. So even though Joyce was dominant here in Mammoth Lakes, I don't think she'll have quite as much of an advantage going into that shorter race. The flower formation, where they'll be doing several loops as well, will give the opportunity for the other athletes to stick together a lot more. And so I suspect Madalena will be licking her lips at this course, not thinking she's lost the battle for the overall quite yet. And here's our men's race. Philemon Kiriego came in coming second last week. knew he had to do something special today to try and claim his first victory of the season. So he was pushing the pace from early on. We suspected our fantastic four would group together, but actually on the climb, cracks really started to show. Remy Bonnet, last year's winner, falling back, and Patrick Kipagino reminding everyone why he's won 2 races already this year, leading out. By the top, it was Patrick and El Hussein locked in battle. Several times, El Hussein tried to make a move. He tried to break Patrick, but he just couldn't. The distance between them never more than 5 seconds at any point in the day. Remy now down to 4th. Philemon hoping to chase them down. It was in the technical section, though, that El Hussein did make a break. He built around a 20-meter lead, but Patrick attacked back. And at this stage in the race, we weren't sure what was going to happen. El Hussein sprinting away, Patrick closing the gap, but it looked like there was a bit of a tussle. And El Hussein, for the 3rd time, winning for their 2nd time by only 2 seconds. Philemon Kiriago taking 3rd and 3rd place overall in our series. We're going to be seeing shortly what that's done to the overall race standings, but incredible, 3 races in a row decided by less than 2 seconds. Can you think of any other race series of a 2-hour time that comes to such fine margins? Incredible to see.
Yeah, and I think the course designers deserve a lot of credit for that, and of course the quality of the field. If you have enough good runners, they will be close together at the top, and that has been an absolute joy to watch so far this season. By my reckoning, Alazoui of Morocco and Kipagino of Kenya are just 12 points ahead going into the final, and the gap at the top of the women's, as we'll see in a minute, I think is 36. Well, there you see the timings, 1 second between 1st and 2nd today, and then Kiriago just 2:55 back, was never really in it, lost touch with the 2 leaders up to the summit of Mammoth Mountain. And the big surprise for us, Remy Bonnet, he's still in the top 4, and he was 4th last weekend at Headlands, but we thought he might be the man making the challenge today. He's 3:24 down. Was it his form? Was it the fact that he did the vertical K on Friday?
And Marco Filossi, that guy must have an incredible downward finish, because he was not in our top 10, so he's flown through the ranks to get that 6th place. And great to see 3 American athletes in our top 10. Shout out also to Garrett Cochran. He's a legend in our sport. His first ever top 10 in the Golden Trail. Incredible performance by him. Similar stories with Tyler Laird and Jonas Soldini. Neither of them have top 10s in the Golden Trail before. And that's what's great about a tour. As soon as you travel to new countries, it does give a slight advantage and easier access to local runners who can then make a name for themselves. So we're hoping to see our top 10 all join us in the final. But as Patrick said, the gaps between the overall points are so small. There's 300 points for our final race. So if Patrick finished 1st and El Hussein 2nd in the final, Patrick could win the overall. But here are our women's top 10 today.
So Njiru taking the win, as you know. Floria in 2nd place for Romania. She's getting used to that. The third time this year she's been the bridesmaid. And Anna Gibson, the staff in the American team, getting the better of Drake and Hemming, who had an almighty battle on the way down the hill. And 4 Americans in the top 6. We've got 6 Americans in the top 10. Who said local advantage doesn't count? It certainly did today, and they excelled themselves. That's really good news. Now the overall standings, have a look at that. 36 points as we expected between 1 and 2, and Maud Mathis still in 3rd place, but she's some 68 points off the lead. It's mathematically it's possible. Remember, there are 400 points up for grabs at the grand final, but I think Mathis is going to rely on bad results from Njuru and Floria rather than outstanding ones from herself. And the men's standings, hopefully we'll get them soon enough. There you go, David, the men's standings, just 12 points between the top two.
I mean, super tight, and all of these athletes will be racing for every position because those top 10 get different amounts of prize money and also will have different bonuses from their sponsors. But that 12 points is practically meaningless between these two. Whoever gets the best out of the final will win. And if Philemon manages to win both of those races, there's still a chance he could win this overall. If you think there's 400 points on offer. So 3 runners going into the final with the chance of winning the overall title this season. And I'm sure runners like Remy Bonnet, Swiss runner, will be wanting to win at home in Switzerland and also redeem himself as the series champion coming into this year.
And of course, the top 30 in the Tour standings at the moment get an invite to the grand final in Switzerland. 4 days of racing. Remember, they've got the women's prologue, then the men's, then the women's long distance race to finish off their season, and the men's on the final Sunday. It's going to be an absolute cracker of an event, and it's been set up perfectly by these 2 races here in the USA. Headlands and Mammoth Lakes have produced 2 of the most exciting trail races that we have ever seen on the Tour. Congrats to all finishers, particularly the winners.
Happy trails.